the Women's Candidates Tournament Pool B. This is the second part of this candidate tournaments this year. We have a new format and we are happy to be here. Your commentators, Grandmaster Arturs, Neiksans, and myself, Women Grandmaster Keti, Tsatsalashvili. Hello, Arturs. What is your expectations for this tournament?
Hi, Keti. It's an absolute pleasure to be back. Of course, this is the Pool B of the Women Candidates Tournament, as we already announced. So, I think it's going to be really exciting again to be able to follow the Women Candidates Tournament, because Pool A, as dear viewers, you already might know, it was held in October, November. Very exciting action was held in Monaco, and now we are back in Khiva, Uzbekistan's one of the most ancient cities, right? And 4 players are this time going to fight out for the only possible place in the candidates final match, where one of the participants already has been known, and let's see what it's going to bring.
Exactly. Right now, Lei Tingli is sitting back in her home in China, looking for these games and looking who will be her possible opponent in the finals of the candidate tournament. We do have 4 participants. It is Alexandra Kostyuk, Alexandra Gorechkina, and Katerina Lachno. At this time, we have all these very strong players combined together, teammates as well, now gonna face each other and gonna fight for the 1 seat in the finals of the candidate tournament. And we do have Tan Zhongyi from China. Arturs, from those 4 players, we do have 2 former world champions. This is Alexandra Kostyuk and Tan Zhongyi. They have already got their crown back then, and seems like they want to get it one more time.
Right. I think the one, if you have been a world champion before, you definitely want to have that feeling again, that taste again, be the best female player in the world. And Alexandra Kostyuk, she was a world champion from 2008 and 2010. Same applies for Tan Zhongyi, as you mentioned. And also Alexandra Gorechkina, one of the ELO favorites of the tournament, one of the very few women players to cross the magical 26-country ELO barrier. She was the runner-up of the previous world championship match, where she lost it against Yu Wen-yun. So this time she's looking for a way to have a second chance.
That is right, and we saw here the first game handshake, and the first move just happened. Alexandra Kostyuk made her first move, and also Tan Zhongyi plays with white pieces against Katerina Lachno, and she also made the first move. We can see now the playing venue. It is just 2 boards, and we have the banner of the sponsors of the event. And it is really nice, Arturs, that lately women chess is getting and gaining a lot of very important sponsors. And one of those sponsors are Motiva. Establishment Lab is one of the partners of FIDE Women's Candidates Tournament, a global medical technology company, and the International Chess Federation have made a landmark partnership agreement significantly aims to support women's chess event. And so far they have already sponsored numbers of the chess tournaments. Along of that is Women's World Team Chess Championship, FIDE Women's Candidate Tournament, and FIDE Women's World Rapid and Blitz Chess Championship, and FIDE Women's World Championship Wild Match will be another tournament that they will sponsor, and we are glad to have this sponsor here at the tournament represented.
Right, absolutely exciting times for women chess, right? So you see that it's on the rise, and the first moves of both the games have been played out. So perhaps before we really delve into the games, let's have a look at the format of the matches, because it's actually this time it's a bit more interesting. It's not just one single game. Now this is entirely a match system. So the players are playing against each other, a knockout match. So 4 classical games will be played in the so-called mini match. This is technically, what do you call it, Keti? This is like a quarterfinal, technically semi-final before the final match. I'm not really, quarterfinal. Yeah, quarterfinal, and then there's the final match. Yeah, it's a bit confusing, right?
It's confusing.
Because it's divided in several stages.
It
4
is
classical games.
It is. We're going to have 4 classical games, Arturs. The days are divided into like 2 games, today and tomorrow. Then the player's going to have day off. You might say like, oh, that's too early to have day off. But by the time when I was in Monaco, I saw the routine of what the chess players are having. It is so tough, you can't imagine. They have coaches together with them, and they barely had time to walk outside or see the other things in the city. So they were mainly 100% focused to train. And that is why we do have here rest day quite often. So after 2 rounds, then we're going to have rest day, and then we're going to have another 2 rounds. And in case if the 4 games cannot decide the match and it is a tie, then we're going to have a tie break. And in that case, Artur, the tie breaks are very exciting to see, because we're going to have not a classical chess like today, but rapid games.
Right, but I think there's still a long way to go until the tie breaks. Probably you're going to talk about it when we get closer. So I think there's a fair chance that these matches could finish in the classical time frame. So it's 4 games, and the first player to reach 2.5 points wins the so-called mini match and advances. So that's why it's very, very important for every single player to score the victory with a white color. And I think actually this is what we might be seeing here today, because if we talk about the matchup of Alexandra Kosteniuk against Alexandra Goryachkina, 2 Alexandras playing against each other. Now this is very interesting, because they have played already between each other 17 classical games, right? And Kosteniuk leads 6 victories, 3 losses, and 8 draws. And what it makes it really so exciting, Keti, about today's matchup, the entire system of the Pool B of the FIDE Women Candidates match, is that this is essentially a repeat of the FIDE World Cup 2021. Now, you remember this, right? The final match, Keti? Alexandra Goryachkina against Alexandra Kosteniuk. There you go. This is the repeat right now here today. They are fighting out the final match again. Only this time they have 4 games.
They just have 4 games, which is, if it's not enough, we're going to have then tie breaks to Artur in the Pool A. Just a month before, we had 2 decisive results in the first round. And Lei Tingley took the advantage against Maria Muzychuk, and Conor Humpy took advantage against Anna Muzychuk. And then all these rounds was a lot of tension for Muzychuk sisters. It turned out that Anna Muzychuk could come back against Conor Humpy in the last tie breaks, but Maria was kicked out in the classical portion of the match in the round 1. So that means that this game, the first game, how you start the tournament, is the key point here, and it is very important for all the participants.
Of course. And I think also at this level, like nowhere else, it's really important, again, to follow the match strategy, which basically it's really simple. You try to score the victory with the white color, and you build a brick wall with the black color. And that's why I'm not really surprised to see something very solid as e4, e5. Forget about anything about like Benoni, like the Benko gambit, like the Dutch defense. All due respect to these very creative openings, but here essentially you're following a match strategy and you want to play as solid as possible with black. And for example, e4, e5 is one of such possible solid combinations.
It is. Shall we see the moves here, how we reached at this point? They have played quite a lot of moves already.
All right.
Rather fast.
All right, let's check it. So the first move was actually e4, and I was looking at their previous history, what they had played before, and e4 was probably the most expected move, which is also one of the favorite combinations of Alexandra Kosteniuk. And here, in the prior games, Goryachkina had played several choices. She had played the French defense, she had played the Rai Lopez, she had even played the Sicilian Sveshnikov, and that's why here she is going for something solid. And after bishop b5, knight f6, dare I call it is a minor little surprise, right? Because she is constantly changing what she is playing against Alexandra Kosteniuk, but still probably within the preparation of Kosteniuk. And there you go, d3, avoiding the Berlin. Well, Keti, I have to ask you, what is your relationship with the Berlin system?
Well, I don't play with any of the colors, but I have seen a lot of them as a commentator. And I can say that not big fun at all.
Right. This is a very, very famous Senge, which probably dates back to year 2000 when Vladimir Kramnik used it as the main weapon, shocked the world. I mean, maybe it wasn't really a shock, but still, for Garry Kasparov, this definitely was a big surprise because he was unable to score a single victory with white color against the very solid Vladimir Kramnik. And he was struggling the entire match, tried to crash through the Berlin defense. It did not work, and then later in the second half of the match, he tried something else. So ever since of year 2000, the Berlin system has been a very, very solid weapon, and that's why you are definitely not surprised when Kostyuk says, no Berlin variation today.
No, she denies that and guards the pawn on e4 with the d3. And when Goryachkina answered this move with the bishop c5 development, now Kostyuk decided to trade the bishop for the knight, and this is not very often happening. What is the idea behind this trade?
I think that one of the big ideas here, Keti, is that white is simply doubling the pawn structure for black and relying on the power of the two knights. And this usually gives white a very, very minor edge that you can try to outmaneuver your opponent. Maybe I can mention very quickly, this is pawn not under attack, right? This is not a pawn for free because this means the very typical queen d4. And you simply can't do this. You can't take the pawn. Obviously, knight f3 leads to very simple scholars mate. So this is obviously not a possibility. And that's why here white has to play something like knight d2. Mm-hmm. And at some point, knight takes on e5 is becoming an option.
Yeah, here after knight to d2, as the trade is knight e5, as you mentioned, black decided to play knight to d7. To my eyes, this is a bit unnatural move. You develop your knight first on f6, then you drag all the way back on d7, block the light square bishop just to guard the e5 pawn. And the question is, like, there was no other way to guard this pawn, or what is really knight d7 doing here?
Well, this is really the modern chess at its best, and I think actually getting knight e7 is one of the main moves here. But the big idea why knight e7 is played, black, like you said, blocks the bishop on c8, but it's all about thinking long term. And black's idea at some point is to reroute this knight to f8 and e6. So after knight f8, knight e6, you get a very nice control of some of the d4, f4 squares, for example. And also, black often plays moves like bishop d6 and c5, because white might switch at some point for ideas like knight b3, d4, and this entire pawn structure, Keti, 4 pawns against 3 at the king side. It's extremely thematic for the Ryan Lopez, for the Berlin, and white is just, trying to maneuver out of this, but knight e7 definitely is a very, very interesting move. Alternatively, I think there's something like queen e7 as well.
Yeah, that's what I was also thinking, queen to e7. But after seeing this knight of 8 and knight e6 idea, I really start to like knight to d7. And it seems like both of these players played the opening really fast, so they are still in their theory. And after knight e7, white castled, black also castled, and we do have knight to c4. Alexandra Kostyuk really wants to press the pawn on e5 and attack it once again. So I think now queen to e7 seems to be the logical move.
Right, indeed. So it seems that rook e8 is a very, very logical move, which was played in the game because black is strictly following the plan to play something like knight f8, protect the pawn on e5, maybe play f6. And now I'm not really sure, to be honest, what is the most ambitious way to continue. I see a couple of normal moves which make sense to me. It's either bishop e3 or think about b3, bishop b2, attack the pawn on e5. But then it gets really interesting because white also can choose between the d4 breakthrough, establishing this pawn majority at a king side 4 versus 3, or still try to go for something like king h1, f4 for some sort of a king side attack. Could be
tempting. I would do that, king h1, knight to E1 or G1, maybe also D2, and then go for F4. And guess what? Alexandra Kostyuk just played king to H1. She also likes that, and she's very active player. She likes to attack the king side. So nice start of a day for sure. And the question is, Artur, is this knight goes on G1 next move, or where white wants to bring the knight?
That's a very valid question, Keti. I don't really know how far Kostyuk's preparation goes, but I think it's pretty obvious she's still within the prep.
Yeah.
And when talking about the preparation, I think that it's very important for all of the players to come with some new idea for the tournament, because this is not so simple. I mean, you can't like play entire career one opening and then you come to the candidates tournament and you think you're going to surprise everybody, because this line already has been analyzed by the coaches of all the participants, and you need to surprise. And that's why when you enter such a tournament of the highest level, you need to have some sort of a surprise, like an entirely new concept, maybe not what you're usually playing. And I think that Goryachkina has definitely prepared Berlin for this tournament, and it's a very reasonable choice. But how far Kostyuk's preparation goes, I guess we're going to see. But it's quite clear something with F4 she has planned.
Yeah, GM Solver in our chat says that if you put knight on H4, that if black goes F6, you want to put the knight on H4. And that also he suggests this idea of knight F8 and knight E6 afterwards to get this knight at the better square and start to counter attack the king side and control the things. Just imagine if the knight is on E6, it controls F4 and D4 square. Those are two ideas that you mentioned. Breakthrough in the center with D4 or attack on the king side. And this knight can make the position a bit less dangerous for black. Artur, at this point, I checked the moves, how many moves here black has played, and there are plenty of the moves. Started with A5 here. Also, there is bishop F8 move. There is bishop d6 move. There is b5 move to attack the knight on c4. There is also f6 move to guard the pawn on e5 and queen to e7. So plenty of moves, still the heavy theory here.
Right, and I also think that for Goryachkina, she has to suspect, obviously, there is some prep, but this position is still pretty closed, and I think that she should be feeling rather all right. I mean, it's not like this is a very sharp open position where there's a groundbreaking discovery. I think that Kostyuk simply has chosen this as a very interesting plan to try. Maybe she has a couple of tricks prepared, but I mean, this is not a super sharp position. So this means for Goryachkina, there's definitely still time. And talking about these choices, Keti, that you mentioned, F6, probably something that would probably drop immediately. Maybe I'm wrong, but it allows white not to play knight g1 or h3, knight h2, but play knight h4. Yeah. That's the point. And then the entire sequence of f4 starts to look quite something else, because you have the knight f5 threat, you open the f file, and seemingly all of white's pieces are looking towards to say hello to the black king. So probably, I think so, Goryachkina is not going to do this.
Yeah, and that's actually a very interesting question to our chat here on Twitch and also on YouTube, which we're live. Do you guys think that this game will be decided in the classical portion of the match, or the game gonna go to the tie breaks and the winner will be defined by that way? And also the other question is, who do you think is a favorite in this match, and who do you think gonna win the match between Alexandra Kostyuk and Alexandra Goryachkina? So that's the question to our chat. You guys know both of the players quite well. You know Alexandra Kostyuk even better because she is a streamer herself. She's streaming a lot of times, also playing a lot of online events like Title Tuesday, and you guys know her better. And on the other hand, Goryachkina is someone who is also on top top 10 women already for years and years, and you have seen her in many tournaments, and you know that she is the best at this staring contest. She looks at the opponents the way like no one wants to be stared that way. So she's a really tough girl. And those two matches, the match between these two is very, very interesting for myself too. And if I ask you the same question to you, Artur, you think that the game will be decided already in the classical portion and they will not go to the tie breaks?
There's a good chance. Right, because we look at the previous score, and as already said, Kosteniuk, at least according to my calculation, leads 6 victories, 3 losses, 8 draws. So this means pretty much every second game is decisive game. And also, it's important to mention that Kosteniuk scored a lot of victories with the white color. And so far, I compared how many times they have played against each other. Kosteniuk has played 12 games against Goryachkina with white and only 5 with black. I mean, sometimes this happens, right? Against a certain opponent, you get this particular color. And she's been using it really well. 5 victories and 1 loss with the white color. So I would actually say that Kosteniuk probably is a small favorite with the white color, but she did score a lot of victories in the early years, right? When Goryachkina was still on the rise, she started 4-0. All with the white color, and then Goryachkina started to strike back.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Mario Bach in our YouTube chat says the favorites are certain Goryachkina and Lachno. And meanwhile, our chat on Twitch has no idea who is the favorite and who can win the match. But the good thing is that we're here soon. We're going to know, sooner or later, we're going to know the winner of this match at least. And Artur, they will be closer, not very close, closer to the World Championship match against Ju Wenjun. Ju Wenjun is the current World Women Chess Champion, and that's the goal for all these participants, all these 4 participants, and also Lei Ting-ji to challenge the current World Champion and get the crown for themselves.
Yeah. And also, I think it's quite important to mention the overall prize fund of the FIDE Candidates Women Tournament, Pool A and Pool B. In total, it's 250,000 euros, right? And the winner, if my memory is not totally hazy, it's 60,000, right? And every single participant gets a very, very nice prize money. So it's not only all about the pride, the possibility to play for the World Championship match. There's also a very, very attractive prize fund provided. By the supporters. I agree already just being a participant of this event, which sounds easy, but it's not easy. These girls got in here because of the huge competition and because of the winning very important matches in the tournaments. For example, Tan Zhongyi is the FIDE World Cup winner 2021, and Kosteniuk and Goryachkina were also Goryachkina is a runner-up of 2022, and Kosteniuk is also another top finisher of the FIDE World Cup 2021. So they earned to be here, and they had to qualify from the other tournament. And just being here, they guaranteed 20K already for the participation. All right, Keti, I think it's a good chance we also have to check the other game, because this is not the only game. Of course, to Alexandras, one of the main events of this Pool B in Khiva, Uzbekistan. We are going to follow it, but there's also the second match, which is Tan Zhongyi against Katerina Lagno, and they have something good. It's some sort of a call spot. I guess we are going to have to go move by move and see how did they get there.
Let's see this.
Right, and
it became so popular to see so many Queen's Gambits and the call spot structure in the classical chess.
Yeah, and they have played 9 classical games, Keti, so far. Tan Zhongyi against Ekaterina Lagno. From 9 games, can you guess how many games were decisive?
None.
Nah, come on. No.
I thought 9 draws, but okay, so it's a result. I would go 5.
7 decisive games.
Wow.
7 decisive games, so they're really all about fighting. And Lagno leads 4 victories, 2 losses, 2 draws. And also, this is very interesting, this is also a repeat of the FIDE World Cup 2021 match. Only this time, this is not a final match, this is a quarter-final match where Tan Zhangqi won the match 1.5 against half a point. So that's why, again, there is some backstory. They know each other. They have played against each other at the highest levels. And also in the 2019 candidates previous cycle, Lagno was victorious with 1 victory and 1 draw.
Yeah, those 2 players are indeed the pretty titled. And in our chat, there's a question, Lagno won some Blitz World Rapid Championship, and that's true. She won in Moscow, as I remember, and in Petersburg, and there was something really wow thing because just a month before she became a mother of the 4th child, and with all this process that the woman body and brain goes through after giving a birth, and then you go to the tournament at the World Championship, huge event, and play tons of games. It's not 9 rounds only. As I remember, we played 11 rounds or 17 rounds. So it was really tough competition, and she won that event. And that shows how strong is her chess understanding and how strong is her. And also alongside with a lot of team events, she has won European championships for several times. And there is a pretty good looking resume of Katerina Lagno, indeed.
Right, and she is also having very good results in accelerated time controls, right? Rapid Blitz, various titles. Mm-hmm. So if this goes to tie breaks, I would actually give some advantage to Lagno. I'm not really sure, because again, like we already discussed before, there's a still very long way until the tie break. So in case you just tuned in, it's 4 classical games. So the first one to reach 2.5 points gets a place in the next match. Yeah. Again, from Pool B, they have to bring out the challenger who is going to play Li Tingji in a final candidates match in order to challenge the world champion Yu Wen-yun. So that's essentially the new system. Well, Keti, I don't know. I like it, right? I think it's very, very interesting. But let's check it. Let's check how did I get here.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
Here we go. Queen's Gambit declined. Can you call it as a surprise? Probably not, right?
No.
Probably not. Really. But this is what Yekaterina has never played against Tan Zhangqi. D4 was to be expected because from 4 games, if I'm not terribly mistaken, right, I think they played 4 games with white color. Tan Zhangqi was with white, Lagno was with black. Twice, Lagno chose the Queen's Gambit accepted, taking on c4, and then she would play something like a Grandfeld, and what was the other opening? I don't remember. So this is definitely something new.
Okay, Artur, before we go forward with the moves, Europe a chance, a very famous platform I know from French, says Alice Katia. I think we know who they support, and that should be Katerina Lagno. I can say that the YouTube chat of FIDE and the broadcast is supporting heavily to Lagno.
Right. All right. So, of course, everybody who is watching, welcome. And if you have some interesting insights, you can drop some comments in either the YouTube or Twitch channel, Keti and me. We are looking at what you have to say, and maybe some of the most interesting questions also we'll find the time to answer, because I think the pace is going to be, I think we have time for that. Yeah, it's going to be a bit slower, so we have only 2 games. All right, Knight of 6 and C-Dex on D5. There you go. Keti, are you playing this with a white color or not? Do you like it?
Yeah, I used to play, and I'm very happy that this is coming back in fashion, because for some time it was forbidden, no, not forbidden, forgotten for several years. But now we do have this kind of modern version of the Queen's Gambit decline, and I like it with both colors. I think it's playable from both colors indeed. It's quite calm position, but if you are a bit inaccurate, you can find yourself in a big trouble from both colors for sure.
So how would you explain to a typical club level player, for example, I see bishop g5, right? There's a pin of the knight. Why do you need to trade on d5? Because, for example, let's say I'm 1800 level player, I don't understand it. Why this trade is necessary?
Myself, I don't very often like to trade the pawns in the center, because I like to keep the center stronger with like more tension in the center. But by the trade, you're avoiding a lot of sidelines like d takes c4, which nowadays became so popular and so sharp. The moves like bishop g5 can be met by d takes c4, then c5 right away. And there is some kind of counterplay that white doesn't want. White wants to go to the very classical setup of the Queen's Gambit declined, and we don't want any more problems here. Another thing is that if you play bishop to g5 right away, black can also start something like c5 to get this even more tension in the board, and now you might be almost forced to take the pawn on d5 and then continue to play. Otherwise, as you just pointed out, queen a5, knight c6, c takes d4, bishop b4, those are the counterplay that black would love to have here.
Right, that's a very, very good point. And also, I see that it's very tempting to try to win a pawn. But here's the thing, in these Tarrasch, semi-Tarrasch lines, mostly Tarrasch, black very often in the modern theory, they sacrifice the pawn on d5, right? You get a lot of activity, and while you might be very busy trying to get to this pawn on d5, black gets a very, very active play. So in a nutshell, yeah, I think you summed it up very nicely, that this is the reason why white normally, if he starts with knight c3, then he includes c takes, bishop g5, because now c5, I guess it's not very good, because you can just take on f6, and that's just not good for black, because it ruins the pawn structure.
Yeah, and also white makes this kind of statement that I make changes in the center and I'm the one who decides what kind of structure we're going to have. And now black goes not c5 but c6 to make sure that the pawn on d5 will no longer be hanging. Black also has very nice setup here with, for instance, bishop f5 to develop this bishop here, bishop d6, knight d7, castle, and to have very active setup. Another thing that black has to challenge is the bishop on g5, because this pins the knight and it is very unpleasant pin.
Also, I find it very interesting, Keti, here is that instead of the classical move like knight f3, I really like this. White starts with e3. And the way I understand it, the entire idea of this move is stop black from playing easily bishop f5. For example, let's say if I play something like knight f3, which is a completely legit move. Let's say black does something like, not really sure what's most accurate, bishop e7, e3, bishop f5. So white gets out the last square bishop. And I mean, of course, white can trade it. He can play bishop d3, takes, short castle. But white is missing this last square bishop, right? And that's also the reason why when we go back here after e3, black cannot easily play bishop f5, because this leads to a very annoying endgame, if we are there to say, after queen f3, bishop g6. This is, I mean, some people might disagree with me, right? But I think that still white is the one who is in the driving seat. He's pushing it. There's definitely a lot of modern theory, but these pawns, they're doubled, right?
Yeah, it is a bit passive here. There is a way to continue to play here. It's not like losing, but it is indeed way much easier to play here with white with this beautiful pawn structure. You're not losing too much. So very often, the players are avoiding this bishop f5 development because of this pawn structure, Artur, because you are just signing on the paper that you want to torture all of your game. And bishop f5 is something that black wants to reschedule for a bit. So So for that reason, black first play h6 here to kick this bishop on h4 square. This is also the detail here that sometimes you play h6 and bishop h4, sometimes you don't include this. So it pretty much depends how you want to trade the dark square bishop. And the first thing what I learned about this structure is if you trade the dark square bishop, you will not have problems. And if you trade light square bishops, there will be also less dangers on the king side. There will be no attack that's sharp. And in the end game, black is feeling very safe. And this is very good structure for black in the end game. So all the game, I was always trying to trade one of the bishops, or at least like better to trade both of the bishops.
Now we know your secret. All right. So here, black played bishop e7, again renewing the threat, the positional threat to play bishop f5. And this is, of course, the reason why white starts with bishop d3. I mean, there's some nuances. Bishop d3 or queen c2, this is pretty much the same idea. White says, I'm not going to allow you easily solve the problem. I mean, you might argue, is this a problem? But white says, it is a problem of the last square bishop. Yeah, it is a problem, right? I mean, you can't easily bring it in the game. Something like bishop g4, bishop h5, bishop g6 is very slow. f5 is not available. So this is one of the common themes, how usually this starts. And here we go, Keti. Now, this is already the first signal that white is going for knight g to e2. And the way usually white treats this position, there's two main continuations. It's either knight f3 or knight e2. And with knight f3, the idea is pretty much classical. You want to play short castle, rook b1, b4, b5, and establish a weakness on c6. And then you want to press it for as long as you can. That's the big idea. But with the knight e2, that's a slightly different story. And after knight e2, the idea is that, okay, you could still go for b4. But the idea is actually that you might take the center with f3, e4.
And this is really challenging for black. The moment white plays f3, the threat is e4. You have to avoid e4 to happen, and you have to strike back in the center with c5 right away. Because if you allow white to play e4 and then e5, that's going to be very, very tough attack on the king side. I have tasted that medicine already. It is.
I'll just put something on the board so that people are saying not good moves, obviously, right? Bishop b7, e4. Let's say I'm completely oblivious what is happening. White pushes e5, probably takes it, plays f4. You just look at this pawn formation, right? I mean, white is just having an incredible attacking chances to the king side, and that's why black's never going to do this.
No. The moment white plays f3, you have to prepare c5 at this point. But I kind of have a feeling that black is trying to implement a lot of ideas. When she played h6, I thought she would go something like knight h5. That's the very typical way to get rid of the dark square bishop, because with the knight on h5, you control g3 square. So if bishop goes on g3, then you have a chance to capture this bishop. Although here it might be a bit challenging, because when white has not castled yet, you might not like this position with rook on the semi-open file, because white will play queen to c2 and long castle and start the attack on the king side. So perhaps Tanjongi disliked this idea. Another idea, Artur, here is knight to e4, right? Is it Lasker's idea, as I remember?
You mean here, knight e4, right?
Yeah, knight e4, now it's possible, actually. Yeah, knight e4 is possible.
Yeah, I'm not really sure who originally invented it, but the way I understand it, there's, of course, room for error. The way I understand it, knight e4 is more reserved for the knight f3. For example, let's say you play something like rook e8, let's say white starts with short castle, knight e4, takes. And in a nutshell, the big idea here is that if white takes it, black wins the tempo. Right? Attacks the knight, knight e2, bishop f5, something like h5, h4, knight e7, knight f6, you name it. This is pretty much classic. White is like trying not to look at the king side and says, there's nothing at the king side, right? And pushes forward, b4, b5. But in practice, well,
it is a good position. It is good. Artur, I have won so many games like that. It seems so peaceful, but then suddenly you show your teeth and it's not really peaceful.
It's not obvious at all, right, Keti? Yeah, indeed. So that's why I do believe that the entire idea also of this knight e2 is that now this knight e4 is not very effective. I mean, probably it's still a playable move, but now you look at the difference. If white at some point is going to take on e4, now this knight already stands on e2, right? So there's got to be already some difference of at least one tempo, and you're not obliged to play knight e2, and instead you can maybe even ignore the knight on e4.
Yeah, that's right. And Artur, you can also do this bishop g3 idea that you ask your opponent, like, are you really that brave to take, like after 94, are you that brave to take my bishop on g3, because then you're going to have to deal with the semi-open h-file.
Right, and that's why 98 was played, and this is very, very interesting concept, Keti, because black strictly follows the idea which you described a couple of minutes ago. You want to trade one bishop, which, for example, after bishop e7, queen e7 would immediately happen. But even more, I mean, Lagno shows that she's thinking long-term, and the knight goes to d6 with the idea to eliminate this bishop as well. Played bishop f5 and the knight on d6. It's famously regarded as the knight on d6 for black, the knight on d3 for white, the most ideal square for white or black in the Kaspa structure.
That looks like a nice idea. You might lose 1 or 2 tempos here, but if you manage to trade light square bishop, then you will not have to worry anything about the center or the king side, and then you can slowly start to just implement that idea that Artur showed earlier to start the kingside attack. And after knight to e8, now white decided, of course, not to trade. If white trades the dark square bishop, there will be less and less tension on the board. So white has to keep this bishop. Knight d6 has happened, and we have here queen to c2. I like how Tenjangi is making these moves, and she's not really shows her cards. She will castle short side, she will castle long side. That's also very nice way to keep your opponent always under the pressure.
Right, and that's why I think here black played a5 immediately, because if white indeed is going to castle long, black says, well, I'm going to do everything in my power to discourage you from castling long, because I have already advanced one pawn, right? So it's one pawn closer for some pawn assault. And that's why here after a5, white said, okay, probably castling long is not a good strategy for the first game of the match. Short castle, and black's a5 is still pretty good because it slows down white's typical a3 b4.
Yes, and James Oliver in the chat, who is Casper and Purin, says that 98 idea is a great because it also stops queen c2 and long castle ideas here. Because like myself with the black pieces, I'm always worried with this idea how to deal queen c2 and long castle, because then white has very strong attack on the king side with g4, g5, and very often I don't know how to deal with that. So now I know 98, 96 is the way to do so.
Right. So after the short castle, knight a6, there's also the knight b4 threat. So a3 makes perfect sense. Rook e8 makes perfect sense. And I guess at some point, white is back to the original idea, play f3, e4. And I think it's going to be all about that. So here, rook d1 is a very distant preparation of this idea, just in case, protect the pawn on d4. f3 idea is definitely there. Bishop f8. Look at this move, Keti. I mean, I'm slightly puzzled. What do you make of this move? h3.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Usually you want to have some kind of space for the bishop, but I thought that after knight g2 you wanted to play f3, and now this idea f3 is looking less and less attractive. First of all, the pawn on e3 is hanging in. Another thing is that you are weakening the dark squares too much. So I think we have to go deeper thoughts here. Why h3? I really cannot say. Is it against knight e4 at some point? So you're going to have a space for the bishop?
Maybe Keti is just a typical waiting move, because it's all about the nuances. And sometimes, for example, let me make again some not very great moves. Let's say bishop e6, f3, knight c7, e4. Sometimes you have to need to control the g4 square, right? So there is, let's say there could be knight on f6, there's knight g4, some typical ideas going after your weakness on e3. And h3 kind of takes care of it. Also, I think which is pretty smart, is that white is not yet really defining his setup. An h3, as you already said, secures the bishop, a potential retreat on h2, and also white can at some point switch to the b4 idea. So it's a lot of maneuvering, right? And white tries to play as tricky as she can, because, for example, if she would play a couple of moves ago, where could I go? For example, here, something like here, f3. Oh, there you go. It's already saying you a lot about this position, and it allows black to choose probably the most active, most precise continuation, because white is immediately revealing the cards that white wants to play e4. That's why after this h3, black doesn't quite know.
Yeah, it's also a kind of waiting move. These kind of moves are very useful to save some time, not to think too much, and ask the opponent, like, okay, what's your plan here? I'm just waiting for a bit. Although it seems like Tan Zhongyi have spent a little bit more time than Lakhno at this position. And also the fact that black has already stopped the minority attack on the queen side, that leaves white only playing the center and the king side, right? So that's why this move has been played on the king side now, like slightly preparing for some kind of attack. Maybe rook to e1 next, knight to f4, f3 still is something that you can look for.
Yeah, that is entirely possible, Keti. And now, I'm looking at this position now, and I try to understand, and I'm pretty sure that Yekaterina here is trying to understand, can you play g6? Because g6 is a very, very typical move. You still want to execute bishop f5, trade this attacking bishop, and I guess slightly improve the control of the center. But here's one thing. Sometimes g6 is good, and sometimes it's very bad. Because you run into f3, e4, e5, if this is working. And then knight e4, knight f6, oops, that's a big problem. Right? So you need to address this very carefully, because one thing about the pawns, I'm sure all of you know the rules of chess, you can easily go forward, you can't go back.
Yeah, the pawns can never get back. That's one of the first things that we're learning in chess. To be careful not to push the pawns too forward. But in this very position, I think g6 here makes a lot of sense. You want to trade the light square bishops. I don't really see the way how white is avoiding that. But after g6, also this kind of... Hold on, is that working actually? Bishop g6, pawn takes g6, queen takes g6, bishop g7, and bishop to e5.
Wow, nicely spotted, because I immediately discarded this. I thought there's bishop g7, and then the knight on e6.
Yeah.
It's under attack, so you can't do this. Oh, sorry, my bad. So here after queen g6, king h8, there could be bishop e5.
Yeah. So you are kind of forced to take this bishop. And this position, two pieces for rook and...
I think it's bad for black. I think it's bad, because the king is exposed, the queens are on the board, e4 is an idea, rook d4, rook g4, rook h4 is an idea, knight f4 is an idea. I think that Lagno very quickly is going to understand that g6 probably is not an option, so it doesn't mean she's not going to play at some point, but just not immediately, which brings back to the original question. First, here, Lagno needs to understand. Does she go for bishop f5 idea? If she does it, how does he do it? How does she do it? She plays g6 now, or move or two later, move or two moves later. If not, what does she do? Does she play at the queen side? I think about some ideas, b5, b4, it weakens the pawn on c6. Are you sure you want to do this? So it's all about the picture of the position. It's not just one move. You need to come up with the entire concept.
Yeah, a lot of questions has to be here asked for sure. Very often there is some ideas of queen f6 to support f5 square for the bishop, but in this position after queen f6, you can face bishop e5 move, and then once again you have been asked where the queen is going, and the bishop on e5 is just standing there for the moment. If you want to, oh no, don't do that.
This is too much, yeah? This is too much. Yeah, probably it's not good. I mean, instantly I say black is worse. But I mean, in some accelerated time control game, why not? This could be interesting. It's a very minimal material sacrifice.
Interesting. If it's a blitz game, for sure, like you can get the bishop on d6, I look for h3 pawn, sacrifices. Why not? But it's a classical chess, and this is enough time to find out the way to avoid any kind of checkmate.
Keti, you know, I probably, if I see such move, I'm very good at suggesting interesting ideas, but when I'd have to choose it myself, probably not. So this also doesn't quite apply to the match strategy. I think that Lagno wants to play solid chess, d4, d5, e6, queen's gambit decline. She's going for some simple chess, and probably sacrificing an exchange early is not something she was planning.
Yeah. I have played against Lach now, one of the World Drop in Blitz tournaments, and there was Benoni type of position where she sacrificed an exchange, and she implemented such a strong attack on the king side. I could never guard my king. So I know that whenever she gives up the material, it is with a very, very deep thoughts. So for the moment, this rook e5 looks really tempting. Maybe at some point she will do it, but she probably needs a bit more than just a pawn for exchange.
Right, and I'm also Keti right now looking at queen g5, and I'm trying to understand, is this also a possible move? Or maybe queen f6, bishop e5, queen g5, or maybe queen g5 immediately. And this idea of bishop f5, I don't really want to part ways of it so quickly. And also queen g5 incidentally creates some potential pressure here at h-file, maybe h5, h4, get to the pawn on h3, the queen on g5 is looking very active. It makes sense.
I see the possible way to end this game in a draw, like after queen g5, bishop f4 to threat the queen, then queen f6, bishop e5, and there we go, handshake, end of the game.
Right. Do you think this is going to happen? I think it's very unlikely, no?
No.
Nah,
I don't think it's gonna
probably not. Probably not, because also I think it's. I think we have to mention this. We haven't mentioned it before. So it's not only a match system. Tan Zhanki, Yekaterina Lagno, Alexandra Kostanyuk against Alexandra Garyachkina. They're playing 4-game mini match. First to advance, first to get 2.5 points wins the match and advances for the final match of this pool. But there's also the so-called Sofia rule, and for this we have to thank a lot of grandmasters in the past who made a lot of quick draws. Right.
Because of them now we have Sofia rule.
Right, for them, thank you. For you, we have now the Sofia rule. And this means that you can't agree to a draw until a certain amount of moves. And here in Khiva, Uzbekistan, the rule is 40. And 40 is the new rule. Right, 40 moves.
Some games barely last for 40 moves.
Yeah.
Wow.
You need to make 40 moves until you can agree to draw. There is an exception, which we just showed, a traveled repetition. A traveled repetition or a stalemate. I think I read it in the handbook, in the regulations. But to be honest, Keti, I don't even know how you can technically get a stalemate until move 40. You know, I would have to really check. It would have to be some sort of a cooperation of both players, really.
Yes, trade everything.
Right.
Berlin Rose should be another point of the FIDE handbook to not to play and to be forbidden, for sure. But there's also a very, very important thing that these players were looking to play chess tournaments for so long time. Because of the current situations and a lot of latest updates, starting with COVID and also this tense situation between these two countries, which are one of the leaders in chess world, let's say. Because of that, not many players had the opportunity to play in the over the boards tournament, and after months of not playing, and now you have a chance. I think we're gonna have less and less games with draw agreement rather than to have long fighting games.
So you're suggesting we could just remove the Sofia rule?
Well, to be honest, for myself, it makes no sense because I usually don't like to have some like arranged draws. I barely offer a draw. It's so personal for me to offer a draw, and and for those people who like to make draws, they can find a way to make a draw. So
Right.
I don't really understand why Sophia rule is there, because I think that the people who should be stopped to make draws, they can find a way to make a draw for sure. And those
Right.
people who barely offers a draw or barely makes a draw, then they are having some kind of like struggle to understand, is that correct to do it? Let's play some more moves and then offer. So that I don't really understand. I never understood this rule, to be honest.
Right. Maybe in women chess the draws are less common. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
men are more inclined to make quick draws because you meet the same person for 50th time maybe, and you already know that it's going to be very tough to outplay him. But anyway, we are talking about something that could be possibly there, but still a Sophia rule is there. 40 moves. The rule is really simple. You can't make a draw unless there's repetition. I think the chances that this is going to repeat here with Queen f6, Queen g5, Queen f6, Bishop e5, Bishop e4, Bishop e5, I think it's very low.
Yeah.
Because also for Tan Zhengqi, she has to follow strictly the match strategy, and she's trying to score with white, right? It doesn't mean that she's totally against the draw with white, but not getting any fight, any chance whatsoever right after the opening, and pretty much say, I'm afraid of your preparation here in this game. This is just not a good strategy. So pretty sure we're not going to get it.
There is no any worse for any of the players so far. It's just equal position. Lots of ideas here can be happen. Another very interesting idea. Our chat Perry suggests knight to c7 to get this knight from a6. This knight on a6 looks to be in the edge of the board, and to bring that actually looks very tempting to have these two knights in the center. Also, in case if there is some kind of kingside attack, those knight will be really, really helpful. But to be honest, for the moment, I really like knight on a6 because it stops this idea b4 happening. So,
right. Actually, that's a very good point.
Maybe it's knight c7, knight e6 is a nice idea. I start to like it, yeah.
It is a nice idea, right? But also, here's the trick. Lagno needs to understand, as soon as she puts the knight on e6, white can play f3. And maybe white can make some kind of a waiting move. I don't really know what it is. It could be something like rook e1,
Yeah.
knight e6, could be f3. Now, the rook on e8 no longer is targeting the pawn on e3. Let's say you do play your knight g5. I'm going to play knight f4, and e4, e5 idea is once again on the board. And that's why it's not really so simple. And I've long believed that in order to be successful in chess, you probably want to think about the game as a puzzle, right? There's the white color pieces, there's the black color pieces, and you can't really build a picture by just building all of your white pieces and you're saying, hey, I got the picture done, right? Because you're missing a very vital information. What your opponent is going to do with the black pieces of the puzzle, right? And that's why the best players in the world, they're very good at combining together the white and black pieces and everything they're doing for themselves. Like, for example, Katerina Lagno here, she's doing also for her opponent. She's trying to understand what's the idea of h3. If I play g6, bishop f5, what is she going to do? If I play knight c7, knight e6, what is she going to do? So that's why it makes really a long process.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think this move h3 puzzled a little bit Katerina because it's not something like very common move. We were also thinking what is really the idea of this move h3. So it's a very nice approach of Katerina to take this moment to find out what the opponent wants, and also for sure this move causes some weaknesses on the king side or future weaknesses with f3, e3, with all the pawns on the third rank. Maybe you want to avoid that. So this is nice time investment from Katerina, I should say. And they are almost like similar time now.
Right, and the time control, did we mention at the beginning?
I
Probably
think no.
not.
So
I think
let's
no.
do it.
Yeah. I'll allow you to do the honors, Keti.
Thank you. So this is a very classical time control for chess, which means that the players have 1 hour and 30 minutes at the start, before the start of the game, and they have 40 seconds of the increment for each move. That's not all. After 40 moves, they're going to have additional 30 minutes, each of them, until the end of the game. And some of the people who are not very familiar to chess, they think like, whoa, that's a lot of time. How is that possible to play one game for so long? But in fact, when you're a chess player, you are never have enough time. You're always struggling on time. You always have these seconds on ticking on the time and finding yourself in the time scramble. But for chess players, that's not much time. Yeah.
This is really, 90 minutes for 40 moves, 30 minutes until the end of the game plus 30 seconds. I believe it has become the gold standard in the highest level tournaments, in open tournaments, everywhere. And ever since the so-called increment of extra time has been introduced, this is pretty much Fischer's invention, right? You add extra time after you make the move. It's one of the greatest additions, but still it's really tricky because as an organizer, you also need to understand what attracts the most the players, what attracts the audience, and of course it's the rapid time control, which is probably easier to follow because there's more action, there's more games, there's more drama, more blunders, you name it. But talking about the quality chess, playing really high level chess, you need time for that. And in all due respect to blitz specialists and all the rapid tournaments, you still need to invest time to understand these nuances. And that's why 90 minutes plus 30 minutes after the 40th move, my apologies, has become the standard. And even I think it was, Keti, you're going to probably correct me, I think it was in the World Championship match and also in the Grand Swiss, I can tell you this for sure, the time control was even longer, right? Even more time. And that's why, it's slower. The pace is slower.
Yeah, that has been several tournaments which has longer time control, because it always has been like this. And that's nothing wrong with it. We do have a world championship in blitz, we have world championship in rapid, and this is world championship in classical chess. So that makes a lot of sense to have all this kind of possibility for everyone, because someone likes to play shorter time control, which means that it will be only 5 days overall, and this classical tournament it's 2 weeks, so it's a longer. And Arturs, it takes so much energy from the participants to be in a shape all this time. And another very important thing is that chess players are struggling to sleep, actually. And by the sleep, you need to get back your energy, rest well, and get ready for the next tournament. And also in Monaco, I remember that some players were talking about this sleeping schedule and the whole routine, how exhausting it is. So they need more time to rest their head and the brain. It's not easy process what they are going through right now. And guys, it is a lot of things on the stake. And those are the players who are investing so much from their life to get the title. And for all the players, there are two things: to become a grandmaster and to win the world championship. So those are the two highest things that all the chess player has dreamed for. I already gave up both dreams, Arturs. You have achieved one dream. So how about the second dream?
Which one?
The world champion.
Oh, okay. Right.
At some point, you just let it go.
Right. Yeah, it's not easy. But you know, Keti, going back to the topic about the time control, it's no secret, right, that chess is becoming faster. Yeah. And this is a difficult thing also for everybody to accept. Most people do like faster time control games. That's why a lot of super tournaments are being played online. Thanks pretty much to COVID pandemic, there's been like a huge boom of online chess. And also FIDE is made this recent, very interesting experiment, for example, with the whole team championships, right? They organize it in a faster time control. What was it? 45 minutes. I don't remember the increment, pardon me, right? But again, it's slightly fascinating and it's tricky, right? It's tricky because how do you properly balance? How do you make it more exciting for the viewers, for the players, most importantly, I guess, at the same time not lose the quality?
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it's an interesting format. I absolutely loved it. 45 plus 10. Yeah, thank you. We had a confirmation in the chat. So, I mean, in general, I do think, Keti, that chess is becoming faster. But, I mean, don't be stressed. I believe classical chess is going to always stay there. It's just there's new branches of chess developing as we speak. By the way, Keti, can I use this opportunity to ask a question from the audience? Because there was a question in the Twitch chat. We are reading what you have to say.
Yeah.
Do top chess players change their preparation if the extra time after 40th move isn't there? Keti, what do you think?
In classical chess, no, they don't change their preparation. But when it comes to the blitz and rapid, I know that many players prefer to have different opening repertoires, different from classical chess. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that probably applies if this is a classical game or it's a rapid or blitz game, because in rapid and blitz, I think it's very common to play perhaps not the most ambitious continuation, but easier to play. Like there's a simple attack on the king, which maybe is not the best according to the computers, because when you have a lot of time, you could figure out things. But, you know, when you have to play a lot faster, you simply don't have the time.
Yeah.
But also, I think there's the difference in the time management, because when you have extra 30 minutes after 40 moves, or let's say like in the Grand Swiss, like in the World Championship match, there was even this extra time after 60th move. Yeah. You are changing the pace, because a good chess professional is allocating the time according to how much he or she has, right? And when you have, let's say, no extra time after 40 moves, this is the time that you have. Obviously, you are accelerating the speed, because you can't really spend 1 hour and 25 minutes.
Can't afford.
Right. And then leave the most decisive part of the game, just blitz it out, right? I know there are players who love it, all due respect to them. But still, there's extra time, 30 minutes coming after that, in affects your decision making.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for me, the game is divided into parts when we have 30 minutes increment after 40 moves, because like the first part of the game can be done by the end of the first time control. And then you really need the second time control to understand the things better. So whenever I don't have this 30 moves increment, my game is like, whew, it's not going well for me, because I really like classical chess. When I play myself, I really enjoy the whole process. And also, like at this point, this is a tournament with 2 boards only, and the World Championship is only 1 board. And you might think that this is extremely boring, but when you're playing the huge event with hundreds and thousands of the participants, it's like the time is going so fast. I have very often asked myself, like, where is everybody? Like, when they ended the game. So it is like when you're so concentrated, and that's another very important topic in chess, to find very strong concentration. That can be very helpful for you. And there are some kind of exercises that you can do to learn how to concentrate, how not to get your attention to the other things which happens around, because when there are like hundreds of people in the same room, there's for sure some of the movements, some of the noises, some actions happening. Someone ends the game and you surely want to know what happened in that game. So a lot of things, and you need to know how to concentrate and how to just find yourself into the chess game. For me, but that's also a very funny question for when the chat asks what is the thing which makes you distract during the game? Is there anything for you which you find is very distracting?
Oh, that's a huge list actually, which can distract me during the game. Pretty much any noise. Any noise that is coming from the opponent, or any any person who is walking by, right? So the perfect environment for a chess player is total quiet. Total quiet, no noise, God forbid, no mobile phones. Of course, they're prohibited, not because of the potential help, but they produce noise. So, that's the most important thing.
I also have, I hate the moves when my opponent eats something on the chessboard. I found that so annoying. Recently had that experience when my opponent had a big bag of the nuts, like different type of nuts. And that's like extra noise. It's something that you eat something crispy and something like chips, for instance, like at least bring some chocolate which melts and you don't make any noise with that. But the nuts, it's like, just hurt your nervous system. But the funny thing was he was not eating on his move, which I could be fine because I basically walk a lot when it's not my turn of the game. But he was eating when I had to move. And what was even more annoying, my opponent was standing on my back and standing right here and eating those things and making all these noises. But guess what? The position was so bad for him. None of these actions helped him to do. Like sometimes I really feel that some of the kids, basically, they want to distract you in that way.
Right. Yeah, I do agree, Keti. I think there's also the so-called legal ways how you could distract the opponent, right? And it goes really far. I read even, there was this very nice book. I don't know if it's true. Probably you have read it. It was originally, I believe it was written in the Russian language called White and Black by Alexander Kotov about Alexander Lekhine's life and how he was fighting against Capablanca, etc. There was, again, description how once Aaron Nimzowitsch was supposedly disrupting his opponents by taking an empty cup of tea and just making sounds with a spoon, right? So it's sort of legal. I mean, you're like mixing up the tea there, but actually he was just trying to distract the opponent. Anyway, I don't know if that is true, but still, I mean, there's those slightly, tricks like coughing, like yawning, and sometimes it can get under the skin of the opponent. Although I'm pretty sure that the rules say you cannot deliberately disturb your opponent, but there's the fine line. What is deliberately, right? And you can argue about it.
A lot of things happening, but we should admit that at this level, the tournament is really, really on the top level, guys. Those are 4 grandmasters. And it is true, but we have to mention that it's not easy to achieve grandmaster title for the girls. It is long way, it is tough competition, and we have only 17th grandmasters who are women. So you can do the maths, and that's the statistics we have. And out of all the 17, we do have 4 of them now here. And those are friends, those are the teammates, and they have huge respect to each other. And at this level, I barely see something like this happening, which is really nice. After all, chess game is something that you respect very much your opponent, right, Artur? You're sitting in like 1 meters away from your rival, and you have to behave. That's another part, right, of a chess and being a good chess player. So those girls, the participants we have right now, for sure, have this ethics already through all these years. They have worked it out, and they have learned. So, but for new generation who thinks that you can do anything to win, they are a long way to go, right?
You can't do anything, right? But some people still attempt, right? Okay, I mean, let's go back. Maybe we're talking about so much backstory here. Some moves were made. Here.
1 or 2.
One or two moves. So Bishop D7 was played, and I think that Lagno's idea was to play Queen C8. I think so. I mean, what else? Maybe Rook C8, C5 idea is an option, and Bishop on D7 could be standing pretty much well. But here's the trick. White plays rook fe1, which is a normal move because you're sort of hinting towards f3, e4, and now again Lagno is in the think tank. She's thinking about it because I think the problem is that after queen c8 there's knight a4. How do you meet it? How do you stop knight b6? This is annoying, right? Because knight b6 suddenly you regret your pawn is not on a7, it's a fork threat. If you play queen c7, you pin the queen. There's no bishop f5 threat, and even worse, white is probably going to renew the threat of f3, e4. And we go back to the position here. I think, Keti, I understand what Tan Zhongqi is building slowly here. I think one of the ideas is knight c1, knight b3. So the knight is going to go to the queen side, attacking the pawn on a5, attacking the square on c5, and renewing the threat of f3, e4. So I think here for Lagno, the situation is actually slightly unpleasant because for white, it's a very simple plan, right? You can maneuver, go for this f3, e4. You can bring the knight to b3. If everything fails, b4, b5 probably could be an option. And Lagno needs to understand, where is her plan? Is she going to play g6? Is she not going to play g6? How does she get the bishop on f5?
Yeah, that's a very, very tough question. But with this plan, you said queen c8, bishop f5 is possible. However, rook e1 is the move that we were mentioning, that it's a kind of like waiting move. I'm preparing f3 some way. Like if the knight goes back on c1, which you mentioned, c1, b3, and c5. Oh, b5 has happened.
Wow, this is a big decision. This is a very big decision, Keti, because as far as I know, b5 is obviously one of the typical ideas, but isn't it mainly when white has played f3? Because here, black is leaving himself with a potential weakness on c6. So no matter what black does, b4 or c5, black has simply worse pawn structure. But I think, of course, Lagno understands what she's doing and she understands the dangers of this position, and maybe also b5 stops knight a4, because there could be idea to repeat the same idea of queen c8. I don't think she's thinking about any b4 idea. It's mainly just to take away the knight a4 opportunity and just get some more space at the queen side, I guess. What do you think?
I like b5 move. I like this one for the space advantage on the queen side, with some potential ideas to start b4 to get more and more space advantage. b4, c5, knight c4 is another idea that you can play next move to be a bit annoyed on the queen side. But the thing is, like, I don't really understand who plays on the queen side, who plays on the king side, who plays in the center, because this is the open position. Both of them are trying to do some activities on both flanks. Actually, I like this move, b5. Artur, I'm thinking to get back on the other game because we have a bit of updates there and we can take a look before we go to our first break. So let's check it out, what is happening there.
I think we left it right after Goryachkina had played b6. Mm-hmm. And I think this is one of those smart waiting moves because that's why they're showing they're the best players in the world, because they understand they don't want yet to reveal their setup, and they're making moves which in most circumstances they're useful. So for example, b6, just in case after the bishop is going to go to f8 or e7 or d6, I don't know yet, there could be idea to position the bishop on the long diagonal, because positioning the bishops on b7, g7 or the so-called fianchetto is usually the best square for the bishop if it controls the long diagonal, right? Yeah. So you want to position your bishop on the long diagonal, and probably black is thinking in some future ideas, I could play bishop b7 and b6 itself. It's a bit slow perhaps, but the position is pretty closed. And here, after knight g1, Goryachkina played knight f8, which is, I guess, a normal move because now white no longer is targeting e5. Remember here, right, the knight on f3 was pressing the pawn and black cannot play knight f8, and that's why Goryachkina is not playing f6. Because we mentioned it briefly, for example, after f6 there could be knight h4. Slightly more active, right? And this gives the ideas of knight f5 and f4. So Knight g1 is probably a minor achievement for black because the knight goes back. Now Goryachkina can play knight f8, knight e2. Interesting preparation move for f4, so Kosteniuk is not rushing. Knight g6, and look at this, Keti, knight g3. Sorry, here.
Okay.
That's a lot of maneuvers, right? Let me draw this. Oh.
And that this is not the final destination. Knight on g3 would go somewhere on h5 or f5 as well.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened. Because after bishop e6, knight e3, f6, knight f5, now white occupies the f5 square and puts the queen on f3. Well, I like it. I like it, really. It's very, very tricky. White is toying again with the ideas, not yet defining the setup, but it's quite clear that the f4 idea is in the air at some point. I don't know when, probably queen g3, h4, h5, and then f4? This knight on f5 is looking really, really good, Keti.
Yeah, there is a question on our YouTube chat. If knight goes on f5, should we capture it? I think that question might be just earlier, but as we can see here, white first played knight g3, knight e3, and then white went for knight f5. So at this point, Artur, if black captures the knight on f5, another knight will come on f5.
Right, so it's not really so simple, right? So knight f5, maybe you can commit yourself to knight e7. I would be a bit cautious, to be honest. I mean, the king is looking a bit exposed. There could be some tactical ideas. Not really sure. But there could be even ideas like g4, right? Maybe white just changes the structure suddenly, and after g takes, rook g1, double the rooks here, rook g1. This is something.
There's something where you can for sure start
right?
here very unpleasant attack, and you can also get this rook on g3, h3, queen h5 to target the pawn on h7, because
that's
clearly black can easily defend g7 square. But how about h7? And when you push h6, that's the point when white bishop will be sacrificed for sure for that pawn.
It's just asking for some kind of a sacrifice.
Come and take me.
Right, of course. I mean, black is not obliged to take it. Black is not obliged to take on f5, but if you don't take it, essentially you come back to the point, where is your counterplay? Where is your counterplay? And this is one thing, by the way, dear viewers, that engines do not understand. And that's why the very good players, the best players in the world, they perfectly understand that you should not always strictly follow the top choice of the engine. Preparation at home, of course, right? I'm not talking about during the game. It's illegal. You can't do this. At home, when you're doing a preparation, and I think the entire sequence by Kosteniuk, she has prepared it at home. You're looking for maybe not the top choice of the engine, but something which gives you easy plan. And for the opponent, it's different. It's not easy to follow. Maybe if you would switch on the engine here, which we are not using, by the way, the engine would say, yeah, it's about equalish, I mean, black has two bishops. But then you look at the position more closely, you ask yourself what black is supposed to play. Well, that's a different story, right? It's not very obvious. For white, you see the idea, queen g3, h4, h5, f4. But what black is supposed to do?
That's a very good question. I had just checked right now what engine says, because we don't use any engine here. And so I was just curious what is the thought of the heavy machines. And it says that black has okay position, even gives a very tiny little advantage, which I don't understand personally. But the idea is something like to do some waiting moves like a5, rook to d8, king to h8, which now Alexandra plays king to h8. So the whole point is that you just wait here with black. You don't make any decision so far.
Yeah, this is slightly unpleasant. But king h8 is probably a useful move anyway, because just in case you remove the rook, the king from the g file, for example, should g4, g takes on f5 happen at some point. Also, there could be an option at some point for white to deliver some sort of a trick with queen g4, knight h6 somewhere. Some sort of a check. And just in case king h8 is just feeling more secure because the king is on the edge of the board, away from the checks, and Goryachkina probably could decide what to do later, but still, I mean, it's an open question. What is she going to do after? Help me here, Keti. I don't know, h4 or g3. I don't know which to choose. Maybe h4.
h4, yeah, I like this move. I really like this move, h4, h5.
I mean, the threat is to play h5, h6, completely destroy black's pawn structure, get the weakness on f6. For example, let's say, again, let me show some ridiculous line. h5, knight f8, h6. This is a disaster, right? This pawn on f6 now is incredibly weak. g6, knight g7, queen f6, knight e8. It just lights out. You can't do this, really.
It's very interesting. What happens right after h5, which is so like calling move. Alexandra made a move, and this is not h5. Or no, she didn't make any move. She just returned right now.
She's definitely thinking about it. I mean, maybe black could try to liquidate, trade off some pieces with bishop e3. Now knight e3 would drop the pawn. And if I take with the bishop, I guess, take, you need to watch out for knight h4, but I have a feeling that this knight probably will be somehow trapped. Queen h... Yeah, I guess queen h... Oh, wait, queen h5, I just take with f5. I can't do this.
Knight takes h5, right?
Yeah, knight f5. I just hallucinated this. Actually, this is legal. Wait. Bishop e3, bishop e3, and take it. And knight h4 is also knight f5. So maybe h4, bishop e3, white can't even do this immediately.
Yeah.
And this you close the bishop, right?
You close the bishop, however, you get this open file. So there are some kind of ideas sometimes like h5, h6 to weaken the f6 square. And for some reason, white is really strong in the center.
Right, and now you can't do the same.
You trap the knight.
Yeah, you trap the knight. Okay, maybe not queen g4, but queen f5. But you get the point, right? I mean, this time it doesn't work. But I think that Kostyuk probably doesn't want to take with f-pawn. And going back to this position, I have a feeling that h4 definitely is under Alexandra's, Kostyuk's radar, because both of them are Alexandra's. Yes. So under white's radar, but maybe not immediately.
She goes with rook to g1. That clearly shows that she's heating up some kind of attack on the king side. However, the move g4 now looks to me to be a bit suspicious because, like, you give up the f4 square, right? So that makes more sense to play first h4 and h5 to kick this knight out, and then to play g4.
Right. That's odd maneuvering a bit, but it looks interesting. And I think it's very interesting that both players, Alexandra Goryachkina and Tan Zhangqi, have chosen the same strategy. They are not yet revealing the cards immediately. Because as soon as you push g4, your opponent knows this is your setup. And here, white is still flexible with the ideas. White can still play g3, f4 at some point. White can still play g3, h4, h5. And rook g1 is like a typical waiting move, like just black played king h8. I like it. It's actually pretty smart. And the same was also in Tan Zhangqi's game, where she is postponing this f3 idea for quite a few moves. h3, rook e1, you know, you're sort of toying with these ideas. But actually what you're maybe waiting for is some sort of provocation. I mean, you're trying to provoke the opponent into something that you might regret later.
Yeah, but to be honest, I think that with this rook g1, you still not need to play h4 rather than and then g4. So by this move, she wants to attack on the king side, but she's not pushing the pawns forward yet.
Right.
Also, yeah, because this idea.
After knight f4, you can still play g3.
There's also this idea, Artur. For instance, like let's play a3 for black. You can play g4, a5. Yes, yeah. A5. You can play g4, and after knight to f4. Sorry, you can play g4 here.
Oh, you mean g4?
White.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after knight to f4, you can play knight to g2. To challenge the black's knight. And if you trade, I'm getting rid of one of the knight who was fighting for the same square on f5, and you get rid of your defensive knight. So your king is now a bit lonely.
There's definitely ideas. Yeah, I like it. I like it. So g4, knight f4, knight g2. Maybe you could play g5. Yeah, but what about g5, Keti?
Oof, this is crazy.
It's crazy, right? I mean,
This
it's
is
very,
crazy.
very scary move.
It is crazy.
I don't know. Okay, let me check it once again. So what was it? If we go back, rook g1.
a5 and then g4 if white
A5.
wants to play here g4.
Right. But can I include some move like h4? You still have bishop e3. Because I want to play h4. I want to play h5. Take away your f4 square. After knight f4, I have g3. I kind of threaten your knight. Probably you can still escape knight h3, knight g5, but that's at least the idea. But the big point is after h5, if you play knight e7, not even to mention h6, which of course in there, now I can play g4. So it's quite clear that white's plan is something at the king side, g4, h4, h5. I just don't know yet what is the ordered move, and that's why here Alexandra Kostanyuk with white, she's played rook g1 first, and now I think there's a very, very small chance that Goryachkin is going to play something like a5 and say, I don't care what do you have at the king side. I think she really, really cares.
She really cares.
Literally.
She definitely really cares about that. This gives Goryachkin a little bit puzzled situation. Look at the time on the clock. Both of them have very much equal time, which means that the game is so equal and the match is so equal. Also, the time is just equal in their case. And I'm starting to think, after all, after seeing the start of the game, that maybe we're going to see tie breaks. Not one tie break, but the tie breaks in the end of the fourth game between these players.
Already tiebreak after game one. Wow. You really want to see the
tiebreak? I start to
tiebreak?
think like that, yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be more than one decisive game. I have a feeling because definitely Dan Zhonki against Katri Lagno, if they had in the previous 9 classical games, 7 decisive games, I find it very hard to believe that they're going to play 4 draws. Probably 1 or 2 games are going to be decisive. Probably not more, because still this is the highest level chess, and chess often is quite drawish. But
tends to be drawish.
yeah, I like it. You know, I like it. I like so far how the games are developing. They're not boring.
No,
they
not
look
at all.
peaceful. There's a lot of possibilities here. Okay, now what do? I think that this game we could maybe jump back to the...
Let's do this. We don't have much of the moves, but there is some move that you would like to see, as you were suggesting knight to c1. Tan Zhongi played after b5, knight to c1. So b5, actually, we can c5 square. So knight c1 now makes more and more sense to get this knight on c5 square.
Right. And also this idea is very, very, very common, especially for the 92 idea. And I don't really know, I tell you honestly, I don't really know this particular position. I'm pretty sure that also the players are improvising right now. But the idea for white to play 92 knight c1 is there for quite some time already, right? So white just removes the knight away from the center. And the idea is that after knight b3, you protect the pawn on d4 just in case. Not only you target this square on c5, you're really opening the way for f3, e4. And again, it just brings the question.
Also, yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I also like this move e4 here for white. Like if black passes the move, makes some random move, which is hard to make in this position. Yeah, let's say e4 here. And to open up the center, I like this one because all white's pieces are so well coordinated. And in the future, if you also play d5 and open up also d file, e file, d5, those two bishops, queen is also is very active. We made this king to h8 a bit like pass move here, but even the king is on g8. This king is not really the safest king there. So in this kind of positions, very often e4 happens right away, even though that you have this isolated pawn on d4, the black pawn on c6 is in fact weaker. So
and that's why b4.
B4 is stopping all these ideas of mine happening because knight is hanging.
It's a very logical move because black is not going to sit and wait and see what happens after e4. And now I think it's for Tan Zhangqi. She needs to make a big decision. Because a takes on b4, I think that black wants to take on b4, eliminate this knight, and it's not really so simple because you're not looking at this position like, okay, it's an equal trade, not for the bishop, whatever. But still, this bishop is very critical for your position, and you're trying to figure out, for example, let's say I play queen e2, knight e3, knight e3, and you try to understand, is there any advantage whatsoever?
For white?
Yeah, for white. I mean, can I...
I don't make a really good use. Know. I like here black's position, to be honest.
Okay, I mean, there's definitely knight f5, right? Knight f5, knight e4, this I immediately spotted, but maybe the point is still there, that after this b4 takes, okay, let me make another move, queen b1. Maybe white claims that because of these weaknesses that you have at the queen side, I have a better game, because again, if you go back to the original position of the Kospad, right, we have to revisit the basics. What was it here? Knight e2. We discussed it earlier, Keti, with knight f3, knight e2. One of the common ideas of the entire Kospad structure is to play b4, b5, and take on c6. With what purpose?
To create a weakness.
Create a weakness, exactly. And now let's go back to this position. This is slightly odd because white did not play b4, b5. It happened like played himself. b5, b4. But we still have this weakness on c6. Yeah. And that's why I think you need to, again, evaluate this, understand this. How does it compare with black's counterplay? Because now look at this bishop here on f5. It's going to be very active. And it's not such a simple decision, but to be honest, I wouldn't completely rule it out. I wouldn't completely rule out Tan Zhangqi playing a takes on b4. Of course, I think knight a4 is the obvious move, but wait, what happens with the pawn on a3? Can I do this? Maybe it's actually the only way.
We can play knight c5 here. We can play knight c5. And the idea of this is if you take this knight and then take the pawn on a3, the knight will be under attack. Let's say queen to c3. So I want to find the best square for this queen. And in this case, when knight goes back, to take the pawn on d5 or to play c6 even. c6 is better. c6, c7 right away. Oh, that's scary pawn.
I don't know. I tell you honestly, there's bishop b4. I see your idea. I like it. But this also strikes me as a very double-edged, no? Because I get your idea. Put the knight on d4, play c7, play rook c1. You have a strong pass pawn, but also black has strong pawns.
those are something. I think it requires a lot of calculation what to play. And Katerina was taking a lot of time. She has 50 minutes now spent at this point already for 17 moves. And then she played b4. It's quite committed move because you give up some of the squares. And also if you don't see some kind of like continuation, you for sure don't go. And I'm certain that she has calculated knight to b5. Maybe that's what she's preparing to do.
I like it. You know, Keti, it's so funny because let's say you would open any old book published, let's say, oh my goodness, pardon my ancient knowledge, let's say 70s, 80s. I don't really know if the Kospad was so popular back then. Probably it was. Let's say you open the book 70s and 80s. And in the book says, b5, big question mark. You don't play like this because there's a weakness on c6, there's a weakness on c5, and white is so much better. Because this is usually how the old books were written. I mean, that was the understanding back then. today, I mean, the understanding of chess has evolved already so much that people, I mean, they just not care pretty much about some weak pawns, because you cannot allow a pawn dictate your pace of the game. And it's much more important to go for the dynamics. And this idea of b5, I'm not really sure about this particular structure, but it's been there, b5, b4, and Katerina has found a very interesting way to make things exciting in this game.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also for me, I'm a generation of those players who had influence for these old classical books where move like b5 would not be even mentioned there. To be honest, like not even being written, not even given a space to do that. I have a very interesting story about Kaspat structure. For me, it's very important topic because one of the world youth champions that I was playing, and for me as a kid, it was the biggest event. I was preparing for a whole year to play European Championship and the World Championship. So I played the World Championship, and one of the very important matches I lost with black because I had Queen's Gambit's position, and then it switched to Kaspat position. Queen's Gambit declined and then switched to Kaspat position, and I could not understand what was going on at all. So that I remember, and I lost very important last round. I lost the medal, and I was there with my mom. I was very, very young. So she bought me a book, which was all about Kaspat structure. I still have that book. But this book was in Russian, and my Russian knowledge is very, very small. And back then when I was a kid, of course, I could not understand what was written there. I just basically know how to read and couldn't understand much of the things. So when I got back in Georgia, my parents made a surprise for me. I went to sleep, and the next morning I woke up. My mom and my dad, they prepared a notebook for me, which was like really big size. And they said like, open it. It was like blue color. I remember I opened it, and they have translated whole book in one night.
What? Wow.
Yes, I still have that. And my mom painted down the diagrams, because in that book so you have a lot of diagrams of the key positions and the ideas. And she drew little pieces, and I was impressed how she drew the knight. She like copy pasted that from the chess book that I had. And there was the first thing when I opened it, I saw this diagram of the Kaspat structure, and I was like, whoa, paintings. And I went through, and they have translated from Russian to Georgian, my dad and my mom. And there was the way how I learned Kaspat structure from that book, which is translated from my parents. And it was such a helpful for me. I have won so many games for years and years with both colors because I had really strong understanding, because that was the first book which I read and I understood it. Because like when you read the book in the different language, it doesn't matter how strong is your level. It's not your own language and you don't really understand that. That's perfectly well. So for me, this book is something that I keep it in a special place for me. And there was one of the greatest things from the parents to know that I was this much supported, that they have not slept all night. They were translating. My father was translating, and my mother was writing down the moves and the sentences. So
that's amazing story, Keti. Yeah. I mean, it just proves that it's very important what kind of first experience we have, and the fact that you mentioned that your parents translated the book, and then the Kaspat structure played a significant role in your chess career. I can also relate to that, right? Also, one of my very first books was this book I mentioned, Black and White and Black, or Black and White. What was it? I don't remember. By Alexander Kotov. No, I don't remember the order. Was it White and Black or Black or White? Whatever. By Alexander Kotov, about Alexander Selekin's life, and it pretty much influenced some of the things I would do in chess, right? So it's no secret that we are influenced greatly by what we read, especially the first read. But going back to the position, Neiksans on b4 has been played, and Neiksans on b4 probably, I think, Neiksans on b4 is on the board.
And Queen to b1.
I think so, yeah. Queen b1, yeah. It's
After heavy thoughts of Tanjangi, she decided that it was a bit dangerous for her to keep the pawns on the board, which makes a lot of sense to me. We have seen some of the lines where Black was capable to take the pawn on a3, so she's ready to give up the bishop, light square bishop, but we have this structure where the pawn on c6 is a backward pawn, and knight on d3, in case of capture and capture, will control c5 and e5, the key two squares in the center.
Okay, but now I have a very provocative question, Keti. Mm-hmm. Does Black have to take on d3? That's a very good question, right? Because I like this knight. And I have a feeling that this bishop is not going anywhere, really. I mean, you won't keep it on this diagonal unless White is thinking about giving a check and then what?
Come back on d3.
Yeah, I guess. So maybe Black even could enjoy having this knight on b4 and play something else, you know, maybe some knight c4 ideas, maybe c5 ideas at some point, or some combine these ideas. Could be.
I like a4 idea here, Artur, because knight a4 is something that White would play here to get this knight on c5, so you control this square by the pawn, and you never know, maybe you will put a3 next move.
I like that. Yeah, it also removes the knight b3 idea. It's a great restricting move. So I don't think it's very obvious. Initially we were looking at this position, and that was like immediate suggestion that after queen b1, Black is probably going to take on d3. But I think that probably this is how typical a professional's mind works. You have some sort of an idea. So Lagno played b4, a takes knight b4. She had something in her mind. But now that the position is there, you tend to give it another look. I mean, you tend to give it another look. Are you sure? Do I really want to take on d3? Or maybe there's something else? Because sometimes when you arrive in that position, you start to see things differently. Yeah. You can even change your mind.
I have to admit that I didn't even consider not to take this bishop on d3, because in this kind of position, you're dreaming to trade the light square bishop. But that is the difference from the chess level, right? At this level, what we have here, they are trying to find all kind of possibilities and not right away go into this, one line that they know that is happening and it's good to happen. So I like the time management here of Katerina Lagno and all these possibilities that she's choosing. a4 is the move that looks pretty nice. We were earlier mentioning queen g5 ideas, queen f6 ideas. There is something about that possible to happen. You get something on the queen side, now you can also get something from the king side. And when the board is divided into parts, when your opponent has to defense, it's going to be difficult for the opponent to defense on the both sides. Did she make a move?
Did she now? No. She's thinking about it. Not an easy choice, because both of the moves definitely deserve attention. Maybe there's even something else like queen b6, right? You could even think about ideas like queen b6, rook b8, go after the pawn on b2. I have a gut feeling, maybe it's wrong, that she's going to keep the knight. That's my gut feeling. I don't know, because I'm sorry? I
like that too. Yes, I do. Yeah, because now knight comes on d3, yeah.
Yeah, this gives White a lot of access to squares, and I think that probably Lagno will treat knight e3 as an option, maybe even as an original option. But then you start to see this position as perhaps slightly unpleasant. But with the knight on b4, what I really like it is that it greatly restricts the queen. And for example, if you combine it together with the move a4, it restricts the knights, it restricts the queen. Yeah. And also Black keeps these ideas of queen b6, rook b8. So maybe this is actually exactly how it's going to happen. She's going to keep the knight on the board, play a4, queen b6, rook b8 with a very clear counterplay. And again, Keti, we have to go back to what we discussed. It's not enough that you do all of this for yourself. You need to do all of the evaluation, the calculation also for your opponent. So Lagno is looking at this and she's thinking, okay, what is White going to play here? Right? Is she going to push e4? I need to evaluate that. Is she gonna play? I don't know what she can play here. To be honest,
So hard to find the moves.
Yeah, but what is White gonna play? It's not very obvious.
Maybe f3 to start some kind of counterplay.
Like e4, right?
Yeah.
Right. But now, I mean, this entire idea is a bit slower because I can kill your bishop. And then the center is, I wanted to say more vulnerable, but to be honest, I don't really know. I mean, maybe something like queen b6, stopping e4, kind of stopping. Tell you honestly, Keti, you're probably going to agree this is a mess. I don't understand. It's a very complex position, and it can easily go either way. But it's a good chance that White might resume the idea of playing e4, because if you don't play e4, I mean, what do you do? I mean, what do you do? What do you do? I mean, you can't get to the pawn on c6, right? It's so far away. The black knight is on b4. I mean, what do you do? e4? Maybe e4.
With e4, you always have to think of knight d3 first.
Yeah, and White is not definitely having any advantage, right? So you have to take a queen, not to lose the pawn. Knight e4, and you actually need to be quite a bit careful not to jump under some tricks like this. Just an idea. I mean, maybe not even like this, but this is a potential weakness. The bishop and f8 looks really good in the future, targeting the pawn on b2. You know, the more I look at it, I totally like
Black's position more.
Black's position. Yeah.
Well, Chad asks if I can show the book that I was talking about. Actually, it's the notebook that I have translated, and it is back in my country in Georgia, and now I live in Poland, so I don't have it with me. And once I have a chance, for sure, I'll make some photos or maybe even video to show you guys how it looks. And also, by the way, Artur, today is my dad's birthday, and this is the date when I can remember that many years ago I played my last game at the World Championship, Youth Championship, and I won the title. And only thing at that day which was making me happy, because I was extremely tired, I didn't care about anything, any closing ceremony or any medal. I was like exhausted and wanted to just rest and cry a little bit. I just wanted to call my dad and tell him that I won the tournament, and also I wanted to wish him a happy birthday. But I'm so emotional person. When I called, I asked my mom to tell her, to tell him about this, because I could not talk. I was like extremely tired with the emotions. And she's like, no, you have to tell. And I remember that I needed some seconds to breathe and put myself together. Because back then, in 2007, there was no digital boards. There was not internet like we have and they can follow. So they didn't know how I played whole day. And there was like the moments that can never go away from my memory for years. And whenever my Father's Day arrives, like it comes my Father's Day, I'll always have this weird feeling back that many years ago I could not even say that I won a tournament. It was so emotional for me at this very day. So I'm gonna call them, my parents, today, and of course wish him a happy birthday. And maybe I can ask them if they have notebook somewhere close by to send me some photos, so just to share with you guys.
Yeah, nice, and congratulations, of course, with a birthday for your father.
Yeah, thanks very much, Artur. We also have very interesting suggestion in our chat.
What is it?
So Tarkun says that the engine move says here queen to f6. I would be surprised if she plays that though. But I actually looked this what is really happening after queen f6, because to me bishop e5 is the natural move to respond after that. And guess what? After queen f6 and bishop e5 here, engine says take the bishop. Just take it.
Sacrifice?
Yes.
I told you there could be a potential sacrifice on e5. Well, I can guarantee this is never ever gonna happen. Never. I mean, it won't happen. I don't care what the engine is saying here. This is an interesting idea. You look at it, it's nice, it's fun, it's I would consider this maybe, but not in these circumstances. When you are playing the first game of the match with a black color, you're trying to play solid. If, for example, Lagno would have to fight back, win on demand, she would definitely sacrifice this. I mean, without thinking, probably, right? She would sacrifice it just to complicate matters, not in the first game of the match. But it looks interesting, of course.
If she's in must-win situation, this is the line you are looking for, and the dream line, is it? But yeah, at this point, I also think that to play on the queen side, some slow moves would be the Katarina's choice. But we don't know. She's still thinking. We are waiting for her move. She has 37 minutes. And this is 19 move. Artur, do you see some time problems coming into this game before 40 moves?
It's, I think, a bit early to tell. I mean, Lagno definitely has spent more time. The way she has played out the opening phase probably means that there could be some time issue at some point. But, I mean, this game as easily could just end very quickly. I mean, any given moment. For example, I'm not even sure how human is this queen of 6, because I think all your eyes are towards the queen side. I mean, how to deal with knight a4, knight b3, knight c5, and so like queen of 6, you go back to the original idea to do what? Play bishop f5? Is that even important? It's not a very obvious move, to be honest. But it might even finish with something like bishop e5, queen g5, bishop f4. Maybe, you know, Tan Zhangqi now feels, okay, this is getting risky. There's some counterplay. The first game of the match, you know, maybe it's a good idea, you know, to start quietly. This is a scenario possible, but
oh no, she took the bishop on d3.
She took it. So I was wrong. I felt she's not going to do it.
Yeah, I also
Okay.
I also started to like it very much to keep the bishop on the board. Let's see, the next move should be very fast. The follow-up here, is she going to play bishop f5 to pin this knight?
I mean, it's a very logical move, right? You kill the strongest piece, one of the strongest pieces that White has on the board, and then you have two bishops. You can put a bishop at f5, you can put the knight on c4, you can play a4, you can play queen b6. I think that probably by Ekaterina, this was a pragmatic choice, right? So she felt that this bishop needs to go. Maybe White is going to play bishop f1. I'm sure she was considering the idea to keep the knight. And actually, I felt that she's going to keep the knight, but I was wrong, right? And she just feels that this position is good for her.
Yeah, she felt so. That's why she played. And also the fact that at this point, this move took so much time from her clock, it means that she was looking for some other options too, and she disliked the other options, and she's like, okay, let's go for this one because it also looks nice to me.
Right.
Yeah, almost 12 minutes that she spent. I thought she spent more time, but it's 12 minutes.
12 minutes, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a bit slow, and let's maybe jump to the other game. We have had in the game between Alexandra Goryachkina, the black color, against Alexandra Kosteniuk, the repeat of the 2021 FIDE World Cup final match, which was won by Kosteniuk, one of the greatest achievements of her career, obviously. And here, some moves were made. I think we left it after rook g1. It was knight f4, g3, knight h3. Look at this knight. And it goes to f7. What do you make of that?
What's the story of the knight? How this knight started?
I mean, this is really amazing, Keti, right? I mean, look at this knight here on f3. Check this out. So, couple of moves. It goes to g3 and f5. Kosteniuk says, I can maneuver my knight, and then Goryachkina does exactly the same, right? Knight h4, knight h3, knight g5, and knight f7. But I mean,
this knight has a longer story, Artur. There was from g8, f6, d7, f8, g6. How was that? I forgot, actually.
Knight
the root.
f6, knight d7, knight f8, knight g6, knight f4, knight h3, knight g5, knight f7. Okay.
Somebody
so
counted how many moves?
3, 4. I'm sorry. 4.
G6.
I'm so bad with arrows. 5, 6, 7,
8. Whoa.
8. Out of 90 moves. Out of 19 moves, the same 9. Okay. But I mean, the position is still good. It's very solid. And doesn't matter how many moves black has made, the knight out of 7 is exactly where it wants to be in this position because it controls some squares, controls the h6 square, maybe also the idea of bishop f8 g6 is a possibility. And this game is still very rich with ideas.
It is. And this knight on f7 is better than to be on g6. Like there is this sense that with this maneuvering, she wants to play g6 and to kick this knight out from f5 square.
Yeah, I think so. G6, bishop f8. I think those are the moves that Goryachkin is planning. Probably this bishop is never going to take on e3 unless there's something immediate. I think black keeps this bishop for a long time. Actually, when you look at this position, it might feel that both of these players are wasting time, right? I mean, it feels like knight g3, knight f5. This black knight went all the way back to the f7. But remember, this is a closed position. In closed positions, it's absolutely normal to maneuver like this, and the loss of a tempo is much less significant than in an open position, because this would be probably unimaginable if the center was open. I mean, this would be impossible because there always would be consequences. But since the position is closed, this allows such maneuvers.
Yeah, you need to have a lot of patience to play in this kind of position, and also to understand that you need to improve the position of the pieces slowly. And what I have observed, the moment the clock goes down, that's where the position starts to be open up. Or in some cases, this kind of structures goes to the end game and ends in a draw. So that's mainly the reason why we have mostly draws in this kind of positions and the openings, rather than in Sicilian and more open type of openings. So it is pretty much up to those players who will start to open up the center. I was thinking, Artur, how about move like c3, b4, bishop b2, to prepare some kind of d4 at some point.
Oh, even b4? Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe. But it would feel weird with the king h1, no? I mean, maybe, I don't know, let's say c3, let's say I stop b5, play something like a5 myself, now you play d4.
Okay.
I assume you can't take it, there's going to be some pin. Although I don't see immediately what, because there's c5, right? But okay, I can improve this. Let's say I can play rook d1, a4, d4. But is this position even good? Because again, you need to understand. Yeah, it's a good question, right? I mean, you have the center, but you're missing the last square bishop somewhere in g2. Although you could play f3, I could play g6. I have a feeling, Keti, maybe I'm wrong, but black favors opening the position because he has two bishops. But it doesn't mean that this is not going to happen. And look at the last move that Kostyuk just made. It is b3.
Yeah, it's interesting. What is her plan with the b3? To develop the bishop on b2?
Yeah, and apply some pressure on this long diagonal. Again, really, really smart play by Alexandra, because after bishop b2, you keep the options to play your suggested Keti d4, where I think actually the idea is to open this long diagonal. Let's say, let me make some random moves here. Let's say black is not understanding what is happening, which is not the case, obviously. And now you start to see there's a potential for attack, right? So the bishop on b2 is looking towards the king. The knight is f5 very close. This rook goes here. This rook goes here. Queen h5 at some point. Attack. Every single piece is attacking the black king.
Oh, don't let this Kostyuk Alexandra to have this position. That's her character. She likes to play this kind of attacking position. b3 is something that was a bit like artificial looking for me, because after bishop b2, you are looking at this pawn chain, e5, f6, g7, and usually you don't do that unless you know what's your next plan. And if there is a plan to open up a center with f4, this bishop on b2 will be way stronger than right now on c1 or d2, because for the moment it doesn't have any target, but from b2 it can have a target, because in these kind of positions it's very often happens that some kind of sacrifices are happening, or g7 or even on f6, and the bishop is at the right diagonal.
And also it's incredibly difficult for black to meet. And black simply doesn't know. Are you going to play f4? Are you going to play d4? Are you going to play h4, h5? I mean, what are you going to do? And it's, from my personal experience, I can tell you, this is one of the most annoying ways what you can face with the black color, right? So far, I think it's really powerful display by Kostanyuk. Again, I'm not really sure what the engine is saying here. By the looks, I like it. And I have a feeling that most likely Goryachkina will have to try to change the character of the game somehow. I mean, she wants to remain solid. She played the Berlin to be solid, to make a draw, but the game is very annoying for her so far. And you don't want to enter a position in time trouble when your opponent is attacking. Although maybe there's nothing according to the engine, but there's some attack because you start to see ghosts. And I think every player, including Goryachkina, they want to have some clarity on the board. So what is my plan? Because every single move, if you have to spend like 5-10 minutes, Keti, I mean, just make a basic mathematics. How far you're going to get? This is move 20.
Yeah.
You spend 5-10 minutes for every single move. Move 30, you're in time trouble.
You are. It's a half of the game only. Another half is ahead of you. And the most difficult point, because at this point you might play a little bit more like faster in the opening, because you know these openings. But when it is a middle game is something that you are spending most of the time. So I really believe that those two games today we're going to have a time scrambles. So knight to d7, d6 just happened, I think, after the b3 move. So black is hoping for some changes. Maybe that's the moment when Goryachkina realized that it's time for some trades, and to trade this knight on f5. You need more forces. Only one bishop on e6 cannot really challenge those two knights.
That's a good move. I like it. The knight on f5 is a problem, so black tries to kill it. And I think it's a safe assumption that Kostanyuk is not going to take. What she is going to play, I'm not sure. Probably. Oh wait, the knight on f5 is under attack just like that. So
can I play?
Can I play something like knight h4 and keep more tension on the board? I mean, there's a lot of maneuvers, right? Black will play bishop d4, stopping your bishop b2 idea. Wait, Keti, check this out. There's knight b5.
Oof, knight c3 is coming.
And it actually forces trades. How do you stop it?
Oof.
Yeah, it forces
There's
something.
some weaknesses on the queen side.
This is a bit odd. Yeah, let me make some moves here. And now I think...
You can also add some moves like bishop g4, bishop h3 first to weaken those diagonals. Why not?
Maybe before, yeah?
Yeah.
Like knight h4, I could... Okay, this
like bishop d4, rook b1, knight b5, that looks amazing. But after knight d1, you can play bishop g4.
It was knight h4, bishop d4 here, knight b5, knight e1, bishop g4.
If you play f3 now, I go bishop here, rook is under attack. And if you play rook e1, then knight c3, and rook will be again under attack after bishop c3.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Maybe the idea of knight c3 is not really going anywhere, and that's why this position is so difficult to predict. But Keti, what do you think? Since this is such a critical moment when I feel we are not gonna get a lot of moves in a short time frame, maybe we could make a short break.
It is a time indeed, and in both positions, both games, we have reached already the most critical situation where some changes has happened. And by the time we will be back, it will be even more games, more moves to be played. And we're going to have a lot of ideas to share with you guys. So all the viewers on Twitch and the YouTube, we're going to take now a very short break, take some glass of water or tea, and we'll be back to you with some updates. So please don't go anywhere because we'll be back shortly.
See you soon.
Welcome back, everyone. This is FIDE Women's Candidate Tournament Pool B, which is happening in beautiful country, Pakistan. And we just came back from our break. It is Arturs and Keti, and we are having round one, game one now in the progress, which is really interesting. And Arturs, I think you would agree with me that this started the tournament and the first round in a very nice way.
Right, Keti, I have a feeling that the games are slowly but surely heating up. And so far we have seen quite a bit of maneuvering, especially in the game of Kostanyuk against Goryachkina, these night maneuvers, right? Insane, very interesting. But also the other game of Tanjanki against Katerina Lagno is a very interesting strategic battle. And again, we have to remind you what is the big purpose of the FIDE Candidates Women tournament. It's to determine the challenger who is going to challenge the reigning world champion Yu Wen-yun. So one of the players of the final candidates tournament match is already known. The winner of Pool A, Lei Tingzhi, the Chinese superstar, has managed to win the Monaco Pool A tournament. Very exciting action. And now the Pool B tournament held in Uzbekistan's beautiful ancient city of Khiva is going to determine the challenger of Lei Tingzhi, which in the end will produce the ultimate challenger for the world championship title in the match against Yu Wen-yun.
That is right. To add to all the information which Arturs just mentioned, at this event we do have 70,000 euro prize fund, where everyone has guaranteed already 20,000 euros. Just after losing the first match, you can guarantee that money. But if you progress to the next round, you're gonna get even more. And what is very interesting, the finalists gonna fight for over 110,000 euro prize fund, which is for the first time in Women of Chess happening this much of the prize fund here. And same competition, same field, same names for many years from now on. But we are happy to have such a great prize fund and also the new sponsors indeed. But in the end of the day, all really matters is this one player who gonna go to the head-to-head match against Lei Tingzhi, and let's see who is getting very close to that match. Is it one of these two players we can see now on the board, Alexander Kostanyuk with white pieces against Alexander Goryachkina?
I think it's quite clear, Keti, there's going to be an Alexandra in the next stage. Right?
One of Alexandra's.
One of the Alexandras is definitely going to advance, so both of them share the same name, very popular name, obviously. But also, I think we have to mention, in case you're not watching this from the start, this is game one. This is the game one of the mini-match system, and it's going to be 4 classical games, and the first player to score 2.5 points will qualify for the next stage. For example, here we see Alexandra Goryachkina against Alexandra Kostanyuk. Obviously one of them is going to win, they advance to the next stage, where they are going to face the winner of Tanzhanki against Katerina Lagno match, which is also held in Khiva, Uzbekistan. And that winner of that match will advance to this final candidates match against Neiksans.
Yeah, the place is not still defined where the final match will be of the candidates tournament. I think it pretty much defines who it will be. In case if we have 2 finalists from China, like in case if Tanzhanki wins this Pool B and Lei Tingji already won A, very likely the match will be somewhere in China. So otherwise it makes no sense to bring all these 2 players and their coaches to somewhere else, for instance, in Europe. So for this reason, at this point, it is not defined, the finals, the final tournament and the placement where it can be. But we're going to know that first, and after the end of this tournament, for sure, it will be announcement shortly.
Right. And Keti, I look at this position, there's one move which I did not notice. We were discussing that after this 96, knight h4, before we went on the break, we felt that maybe it was me who suggested it was bishop d4, knight b5. But here first, it was knight b5, bishop b2, knight e4. And I kind of lost the count of the moves of the knight because the black knight made 2 more moves. So remember, it was on f7. And how many moves did we calculate? 9?
Guys, we calculate 8, right?
Well, there's 2 more. So knight e6 and knight b5. So these are excellent moves, right? You take away the squares on d4 and c3, but once again, I think it was knight f6, knight e7, knight f8, knight e6, knight f4, knight h3, knight g5, knight f7, knight d6. I already lost the count. Knight b5, and this knight has not yet said the final word. It's like an immortal knight, really. It's getting to d4.
It looks to me like mosquito who is flying around, annoys you, and you cannot catch the mosquito. So, yeah. And this is not even a final destination for the knight.
No.
Well, what's the difference? They have kind of changed the move order, not bishop d4 first, but knight to b5 first, and now bishop to d4. I was actually thinking, is Black planning to take on d4 with a pawn or with a knight if White decides to trade the bishop on d4?
That is a good question. I would assume that knight x on d4 is the original idea, but I definitely see what you mean. Now, you can't play knight f5 because this just drops the piece because of the very simple pin.
Little tricks.
Yeah, little tricks, but they sometimes decide the fate of the game. But of course, this is not going to happen. Then after takes, if Black takes it, you can play something like knight g2. There's a very beautiful square of the knight on c3, but in the end of the day, I think Black needs to figure out, maybe this knight is not doing anything there at all, because White's idea was to go for the kingside attack.
Yeah, and this looks like this male mosquito, the big one, which is just stands and not moves and not making any danger. So yeah, knight c3 is looking good square here, attacking a2 pawn and everything, but maybe not that tempting, and this knight can be on d4. So it means that after bishop d4, very likely Black can take this bishop back with a knight.
I think so. I think probably Goryachkina is going to be very pragmatic, but I do agree that e takes on d4 looks interesting. And now I don't know what could be the follow-up here. Probably something like queen d1, because you want to keep an eye on the f3 square just in case Black is going totally crazy with g5. let's say here, and I can't help but feel that black is feeling very comfortable. You know, we have to go back to this sequence when, where was this? Here, knight f7, where I said I like white's chances. You know, I really liked it. I even liked b3, but I can't help but feel that all of this was a bit too slow, that this is maybe a bit too much, right? It was a great idea with great intentions, but here I have a feeling that Kosteniuk simply missed. She simply missed this idea of knight e6 and knight b5. Great idea by Goryachkina, putting the knight on d4, because it doesn't look like this was the original plan of Kosteniuk. And instead, if I would go back to this position and play b3, maybe she had to try something else. Maybe b3 was not as good, and really she should have played something like bishop d2. Or maybe black is just fine, right? So we're just trying to squeeze water out of stone here.
Seems like okay. Seems like okay, and you just wait for your opponent. It's not so dramatic position, as you can see. White is taking a little bit more time here, although they both have 28 minutes at this point. 22 moves has been played. White is probably considering it either to take, either to play rook to b1. Not much of the options here, though. You cannot really make any other choices like knight c4 or a4 or c3, because, yeah, you're not getting out of it.
This is asking for trouble, right? I mean, the rook on b1 or rook on b2 cannot go to b1. There's a fork. This looks just outright awkward. And that's why, of course, bishop d4 was played by Kosteniuk. Okay. And now the big question. I think knight x on d4 probably is going to be played. I think that also Goryachkina is very tempted, try to complicate matters. But is she going to do it in the first game of the match? That could be a very powerful signal. You know, try to change the character of the game. X on d4, knight g2, stay cool at the queen side, at the king side, and let's say push something like, I'm not sure about this, knight c3 immediately. Let's say knight c3 for the sake of the argument, queen d2 and something like a5. And white says you have nothing at the king side. But don't? Okay. White doesn't really have nothing at the king side?
The thing is that I was just worried a little bit about the knight on h4, and I was thinking maybe something like g5 can happen instead of a5 there.
Oh, all right.
So that slows down white's attack on the king side in that case. So it takes knight g2, knight c4, queen d2.
Knight c3,
sorry, queen d2, and now g5. Knight has to come on f3 probably. And now we can play bishop to g4 even to attack more these pieces. Wow. So far, black has made several active moves. But you say that I want to play f3, next move, kick this bishop, and then f4, right?
Yeah, f3, f4, something like that. I'm not really sure. I have a feeling, my gut feeling is that knight c3 is doing nothing, but you know, it's very tricky, because then again you start to look at the position and try to figure out what exactly does white have at the king side. So if you put the knight on c3, it's a long-term commitment, obviously. You have some targets here, and if the white's attack at the king side winds down, you keep the knight on c3. Of course, there's f3, knight e2. Right, and the knight has to go away. So of course, I think in the end of the day, Goryachkina just looked at all of this. It's fun, it's interesting. I can suggest it, but let's just be pragmatic. And took on d4 with the knight.
Yeah, she took it with the knight on d4. But I think I know what could be played here with black. Can we go just a bit back, like e takes d4, for instance?
Okay.
And now we were talking about knight to g2, because engine gives here a huge advantage to black, as our chat says, minus 0.70. So, well, it's not so huge, but it's something. But here is a g5 move. G5.
Yeah, here.
So knight cannot go back on f5 because you're going to lose it. And after this, bishop g4. You pin the knight. You want to play knight c3 right away to win the knight. So white has to play here only move, I guess. It's knight g2 e1. And...
okay, but this is ugly already. We can agree on this, right? This is ugly for white.
Yeah, f5 right away. Just blow up the center. Rook controls the file. Bishop controls the diagonal. Knight comes on c3.
Okay. Just a second. Let's check how did this happen. So bishop d4, e takes on d4. First, I'm not obliged to play knight g2. Yeah. I could play knight c4. And I assume that you still want to play
Aren't you a bit farther, like after g5?
And knight g2?
You want to go there.
Not knight f3, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I free this g2 square for the other knight. There could be an attack. You play something like, I don't know, where do you put the queen? b5. I get the point. I understand the point, definitely. But it's not an obvious choice. And again, you have to, dear viewers, you have to remember that this is a match situation, right? This is not a single game. And Goryachkina felt that it's probably not a great idea. She definitely looked at this.
Yeah.
And the point is, after knight e4, black is still doing fine. The knight on d4 stands beautifully. There's no obvious weaknesses. I think she's going to play something like c5 next, or maybe a5. And she's happy with her choice.
Yeah, for sure. Knight on d4 got something that this knight was looking for this game after all this maneuvering that we have seen. But for me, it was a bit difficult to understand what is the follow-up here for black. Are we going to play a5, a4? Are we going to play g5? But that's a bit like too active on the king side, as we're not playing on the king side. And our plan is not to play a5 next move. Like, I was struggling to understand what is the plan after knight d4. I mean, and where after e takes d4, there's always this plan of g5, a5, bishop g4, and it's like more easy to play there. She goes
right.
c5, I guess.
Yeah, I think Goryachkina here has chosen to be solid. So c5, she solidifies her situation in the center, and also I think for white it's not very obvious to play a4. Now this is a very typical position, like which arises sometimes in the Sicilian Rossolimo. So Sicilian Rossolimo, e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and then you take on c6. You can get pretty much the same position. And I have a feeling that compared to the typical Sicilian Rossolimo position, black has achieved a lot, while white has not achieved much. And it's quite odd, right? Because black did waste so many tempos within those knight moves. But it was, I think, this b3 move. Once again, we have to go back to this choice of Kostyuk.
Alexandra Kostyuk, yeah.
I think
it
this was
all
not a good
after
move.
this b3.
Yeah, because now this allowed knight e6, knight b5, knight e4, this maneuver, which probably was missed by Alexandra. And now, after f4, I think black is going to take it. And after something like... you could
Can we see what happens after rook takes f4 and g5? Is that any dangers for black?
Yeah, there's a fork, I guess. But even let's say, Keti, even if there's no fork, let's say if white does something like, what was it, c5, let's say you play knight g2 first, whatever, I'm going to play rook d8 and f4. Okay, maybe this is the right way. Even here, I think black is going to take. And now the point is, after g takes, black's chances should not be worse with a counter-strike. Think about putting the bishop on b7, or maybe even keep the bishop on e6. Yeah, it's a very strong bishop, right?
Remember when black played b6 at the beginning?
Right. You never know. Maybe you're going to use this long diagonal to your advantage. So again, here, f4 takes. Probably white is going to take with something like rook. And now black has a very nice outpost on e5. So think about, again, moves like bishop f7, rook e5, bishop g6. And at the end of the day, you simply look at this position and you ask yourself, where is white's attack? Where is it?
When you said e5 outpost there, you wanted to play knight c6 and knight e5. another 2 extra moves with the knight. This could be really too much, but
why not? I mean, it's interesting. But I like the knight on d4. It's very annoying. And the way I see that black is effectively killing off white's attack, which is gone. And maybe white's attack was already doomed to fail after white gave up this dark square bishop, right? So maybe there was nothing in the beginning to start with. Maybe she should have played bishop d2, rook e1, f4, etc. But now without the bishop, I have a feeling that this f4 is not giving anything at all. Now we have c3 on the board.
c3 has been played?
c3 has been played, but now the pawn on d3 is weak. So I play knight c6.
Oh, I thought f4 has been played. I got a bit confused there.
c3, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, d3 pawn is now weakened, and there are plenty of ways to attack this pawn. Like rook d8 is the move that you can just see right away. That's the first thing. Another thing is that you can always get this bishop on c8, a6 to look for it. And that's something that you don't really want to handle. Like in the Sicilian position, when you have this d6 backward pawn, you always have the bishop on e7 to guard this weakness, and you don't have other pieces to occupy with this. So now the light square bishop is off, and queen and the rook should be busy with the guarding d3 pawn, just one pawn, which gives black some time either to start a5, a4 counterattack on the queen side, or even to look some ideas to open up the center with f5 at some point.
Right.
Yeah, a5 right away. Sounds good.
Even a5 right away, and the a4 is a threat. You know, Keti, I have a feeling that Goryachkina is taking over. That is my instinct, because White's slow approach has led her nowhere. There's no attack. White still haven't played f4. White still hasn't played g4. King h1, rook g1, rook f4, knight h4, all these knight maneuvers, and there's just nothing. And now this is an obvious weakness, but I understand why Kostanyuk did this. Because the knight on d4 is difficult to bear, right? It's so annoying knight. And if you're going to take on play f3, knight e4, you're simply entering a slightly worse position. So this is like a necessary evil. c3, knight c6,
queen e2.
Queen e2.
Yeah, it's been played.
I think Kostanyuk already should be a bit careful here.
Yeah, I think so too. a5 is the move that I like so much. You want to get space advantage on the queen side. You want to play a4 next move to undermine the b3 pawn. And what is really bad for black, for white, is that after a5, you can't answer with a4 to block that pawn coming forward because the b3 pawn is hanging. So black is getting some advantage on the queen side with that.
And again, the big point is when white is going to finally gather the courage to play f4, because after let's say black plays a5, f4, white would love to switch the position to f5, g4, rook g1, g5, knight f3, switch the attention towards the king side. But the problem is black is always going to take it, at least I think so. And then, in order to hope for the attack, you have to take with the g-pawn, and I can't help but feel that this center is shaky. So
Artur, can we play f5 right away to use this pin on e file that the rook creates?
I think so. Oh, sorry. Why it keeps jumping back? I don't understand. Okay. So, you can't take it, right?
Because you just win the piece.
Here, exactly. So this is not good. And after f5, if you play something like e5, we could go back to the idea of bishop c8, bishop b7, or...
You can play knight to e7, knight to 5 ideas.
That looks really good for black. Also, I think with the knight on e7, there could be, at some point, maybe not immediately, there could be ideas to play h6, g5. I guess not with the king so exposed, but sometimes, let's say we get the queens off the board.
Game with this pawn structure, this pawn structure reminds me the one in the King's Indian. This is a very common idea when the black starts to play f5. You just take, it takes f5, g takes f5, and you play f4. And when black plays d4, that's when you play g4 afterwards. So in the end game, and it is something that can totally break down the pawn structure in the end game.
Right. All right. So far, I think that Goryachkina has excellent chances to open the match with a victory. Once again, to remind you, their previous head-to-head score, Kostanyuk has a better score against Alexandra Goryachkina. She leads 6 victories, 3 losses with 8 draws. But Kostanyuk started with 4 victories when Goryachkina was still on the rise. And in the last games, Goryachkina has scored more points, but it is essentially the repeat of the FIDE World Cup 2021 final, where it was Kostanyuk who emerged victorious with 1.5 points against half a point.
Very tense situation, and the things are heating up, as we mentioned. Let's get back in the game of Tan Zhongyi and Katerina Lachner, because I can see that Katerina is struggling a little bit on the clock.
7 minutes. This is not good news. And I think, again, we have to go back here. When was this? We
93 happened, yeah.
93. Already here, you could feel that for Katerina, the decision-making is a bit slow, right? Every single move is like 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The more I was looking at this position, I didn't really like this choice to take on d3, but I understand the reasoning. And Katerina felt that this is, I guess, good for her. Bishop f5, activating the bishop. And now she trades. And knight f5, bishop f4, bishop d6. This is a bit strange, to be honest, because I think she immediately accepts that she is slightly worse. I mean, even let's say bishop d6, knight e6, and let's say something like knight a4, rook c1, rook c3, b3. White is always slightly better.
Yeah, White always wants to reach this position when there is 2 weaknesses for black, a pawn and the c pawn.
Right. And after bishop d6, Tan Zhongyi didn't even take it. She played knight e2.
Yeah, I like the take, because otherwise, like, now black played bishop to b4, and I like this bishop to be on b4. Like, this is a really nice outpost for the bishop. It was earlier for the knight, and why not to get this bishop now? After rook to c1, the pawn on c6 is hanging, so black played rook to c8, and queen a4 attacks the pawn again on c6, and black had to guard it, and she guarded it with queen to b6. I have a feeling that Katerina is started to play a little bit passive and more defensive moves.
I mean, it looks a bit strange because clearly she changed something in her mind. Because look at this, after bishop f4, she did play bishop d6, right? She did play bishop d6, willing to trade the bishops. And after knight e2, now she plays bishop b4. And again, changes the course of the game. So that's why I'm not really sure. Is it really so important who is first going to launch the knight on d3 and on d6? I think White actually could have played simply take, and again this knight e2, right? But that's why maybe Tan Zhongyi didn't expect. She didn't expect that after bishop d6, knight e2, that black is suddenly going to decline the trade, because black already said, listen, I'm ready to trade. I'm ready to play knight e2, and suddenly black says no. I mean, let's keep the bishops on the board. But what is quite obvious is that White is pressing. White is definitely pressing here, because this pawn on c6 is a target. Black has no targets. The pawn on b2 is effectively defended. And if at some point, if in some scenario, I'm not saying this has to be done immediately, let's say black plays c5, you could take it, rook c5, queen d1, take it. Here, black is still left with an isolated pawn on d5, which is slightly annoying.
It is. She did play c5 to try to simplify the position, trade some of the pieces, but if this is not working well, then she's creating the pawn on d5. This is the isolated pawn. Can we take a look what happens after d takes c5, how black is going to respond?
Right. After d takes on c5, I guess rook takes on c5 has to be played, because you don't want to create a pin.
Right, queen to d1, attacking the pawn on d5. Probably he wants to take the rook on c1 to trade.
Probably.
And now let's say queen takes or knight takes. If I take with a knight, how you're going to defend the pawn on d5? Knight e7 is the only move I see.
That's a very good question, Keti.
Artur, if we play d4 here to have this nice trap after e takes d4 and rook to e1 to win the queen, white can respond with g4.
Oh my goodness, g4.
Tricky move. Is this any good?
I have no idea. Knight h4, rook d4. Wait.
There was d takes e3, very ugly move.
Unfortunately, this doesn't work, yeah?
It does work?
No, it does not work. I mean, queen d4 would be a fork.
But it takes d4.
Yeah, and white is just up a pawn.
Yeah. Artur, after g4, maybe black can play something else there. Let's take knight, d4, g4, and d takes e3. So if you take the knight, I take the pawn with a check.
And rook e1 is a very big threat.
So scary position, really.
I think black is just winning. Yeah, that's it. So the queen is under attack. That's a nice find, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So rook e1 attacking the queen. There's a check on d8. You play king h7. It gives nothing. Yeah, that's a brilliant refutation. So d4, black, by the looks at least, the knight on c1 is not doing anything, and this means that white has to capture with
knight,
the queen.
With a
queen.
To keep the knight there to control d4 square.
And now d4 is not an option because if black does it, white remains up a pawn. d4, take many times, rook e1, take, and then you're just having an extra pawn on d4. So not here. Now the question is black drawing this? Because I think that Lagno here has decided, okay, I mean, let's forget about all the active possibilities that I had before. Now let's just make a draw out of this.
Yeah, maybe it's time. d5 pawn now is an isolated pawn, and we do know that isolated pawn is strong in the middle game because it creates so much space. You need pieces for that space to improve the position, but here in the end game, without so much pawns and the attack on the king side, we can say that it can be a weakness on d5.
Oh wait, Keti, there's another move. I think this is what Tan Zhongyi is looking at right now. There's rook d1. Attacking the knight on f5.
Oh, nice.
And this improves things actually considerably. Because let's say, let's say g6. Now the big point is, I don't have to play queen b1 anymore. I could play something more active like queen d3. And after rook c1...
Oh, you can play queen a4.
Or even queen a4. Yeah, exactly. So even queen a4 is a move. There's threatening queen e8 check, and the pawn on d5 is still under attack. Now that's a weakness on h6. Just a sample line. I think rook d1 actually makes perfect sense here. So where was this once again? c5, rook d1, because the rook on d3 is not doing anything. And where does the knight go? Where do you put it?
It's a very good question. Very, very good question where the knight goes.
There's no c-takes on d4. I don't think there's any tactics. Take, queen f5, takes, come on. Yeah.
No.
That doesn't look like there's anything. I could take it, I could allow you to sacrifice the rook, and in the end, you just resign.
The rook on c8 is also hanging.
Yeah.
With a check.
Okay, rook d1
and
is on the board.
she goes for this. The rook to d1 has been played by Tan Zhongyi.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Oh, Artur, do you know that Tan Zhongyi is in about my age, I think 1 year older, and we played a lot of youth championships together, and I can remember that the kids were crying for if they were paired up against her in the first or second round. I remember one girl cried before the round. I didn't understand what was the reason for that, and later on I understood that she was crying because she played against Tan Zhongyi, and back then she was like super strong, like very, very strong kid.
Right. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have queen e6, which is a solid move, and this means that Lagno anticipated rook d1. Now, it's a safe assumption that d takes on c5 is about to follow. Otherwise, black is going to play c4. This is not what white wants to do. Because, for example, let's make some random move. Whatever. Let's say queen d3.
Yeah.
White plays c4. And black has actually chances to organize a pass pawn at the queen side. Either c3 or a4, a3. And he has a pass pawn at the queen side. And that means after queen e6, you have to take. You have to take. So
pretty fast because Tanzhangi has here half an hour and Lachno has 7 minutes. So if she blitz out some moves, Lachno can find herself in a serious time of trouble.
I'm trying to understand if white even has any advantage. If white has an advantage, how much is it? I mean, there should be some advantage, but black's position looks extremely healthy. The bishop on b4 stands nice, the pawn on a5 is advanced. The only problem is the pawn on d5. But here's one thing which I know for sure, Keti, about the engines. Engines literally do not care about isolated pawns. Not at all. I mean, they say it's nothing. It's nothing, right? And I'm trying to understand, for example, what could the engines saying here. No feelings. No feelings at all, right? So maybe black is just fine. But all of us, with a classical chess education, we have been taught in chess like isolate the pawn is something. It is something, right? And you would open pretty much again any old book we discussed, Keti, right? Before about some old dogmas in chess that isolate the pawn. Oh my goodness, it's so bad, right? But no,
in the end game, especially when you don't have attack. Yeah, I agree with that. Too. Well, maybe the position is not so dramatic here for black, but the time situation it is. Then at this point, this is move 28, so it means that 12 more moves has to be played in 7 minutes. And if those moves are not so easy to spot out or to make, maybe the things can change before the 40 moves. And that's the wrong scenario for everyone. Like some of the games and most of the games has been done before 40 moves because you don't have enough time and you're blundering something. And if you blunder something and your opponent gets the increment on the clock, that's also another very bad scenario because now your opponent has enough time to find out all the ways to improve the position. So d takes c5 has happened right now. Katerina has not spent any second to capture it back with a rook. And next move from Tanzhangi, she doesn't have much of the choices. Queen d3, queen a4, queen b3, and queen b1. Those are 4 legal moves. Out of this, queen b1 is too passive, I think.
No, queen b1 definitely not. Queen a4 looks like... Queen d3 or b3? I suspect probably queen d3. Yeah, it's played because it's a bit closer to the queen. You know, you want to keep your army as mobile as possible. You know, overprotect everything. And queen on b3 feels like it's a bit loose, right? You put it on the other side of the board and still you're attacking the pawn on d5, attacking the knight on f5, and that's why queen d3 is played.
That's right. Queen d3. So
8 minutes. 8 minutes for Lagno. Slightly unpleasant.
She's really strong, rapid player and the blitz player, but still it's not a rapid game because the opponent has more time. Like it's okay if your opponent also has a low time, but no, she doesn't have. They are making so many moves here. I think rook to c8 has happened.
Yeah, just as I was about to suggest that, one thing after queen d3, and this is where, let's say, club level players can take notes, right? Because it's not all about the pawns. And for example, let's say you're playing a black. I've seen many players committing these mistakes. For example, you see, oh my goodness, the pawn on d5 is under attack, I should protect it, right? Let's say I play rook d8, rook c5, bishop c5, whatever, knight c3, knight e7. These moves are not ideal, but the big point is black is passive. And that's why players like Lagno, players like Tanzhangi, Castagnon, Garyashkina, they're never going to play passive if they can play something active. And rook c8 is a great move because it indirectly, or even directly, defends the pawn on c5. Because after rook c5, black still protects the pawn on d5, but is still active.
Controls the c file as well.
Yeah, and controls the c file as well. So that's the point. So here, compared with the rook on e8, which would feel mostly, for most people, as secure square. On c5, the rook actually does something.
Yeah. I like this active play of Katerina, and also she has played really fast for a few moves and still has actually more time on the clock than she had at some point, which is something that we can consider. She will hold on time perfectly well.
I think she's doing okay, to be honest, Keti. I think she's doing okay because maybe White has some minor psychological advantage on the clock, on the position, but I just don't see how White is immediately making a progress. Yeah. Maybe some knight f4 idea at some point, but the bishop stands there. Maybe play g4, knight e7, and knight e4, but you weaken the king. And is this pawn really so important? I guess it is.
It is important. Yeah, maybe g4. If this is working, g4 and knight d4, White will go for sure. But to be honest, after this move, I don't really see the follow-up. Like, you block this pawn on d5, but in fact you want to attack this pawn, right? So Artur, I'm actually starting to think maybe we need to get the knight on f4 to attack the pawn on d5. So instead of g4, how about we find a perfect square for the bishop? Let's say...
Which is where?
I was looking for b8, if that's the perfect square for the bishop.
Oh, no, that's not the perfect square. Really? No.
Well, the idea is to get bishop a7 and bishop d4. If I get my bishop on d4, I'm happy.
Oh, my goodness. That's really deep. No, I mean, here Tanjanki says, sorry, Keti. Sorry, it's going to be bishop h2. But the idea is not a
Come on. Yeah.
She goes for the knight f4.
So the topic bishop 8, we might argue here bishop 8, b8. No, bishop b8 is just a funny looking move. I don't like moves like this because in most of the puzzles and the tactical tactics that we have, those kind of bishops are the ones which are the targets, right? The ones which are not guarded. Right. So bishop h2 is a normal move, and now knight f4 is White's idea.
I also think this is pretty smart because White is provoking, because maybe a less experienced player could immediately play g5, which would make sense because you not weaken the king, but you take away the f4 square, you give more space for the king. But what it really does, it does weaken the king. And such decisions, especially when you are on the defensive mode, cannot be taken lightly. And I don't think that Lagno will feel very comfortable with so little time on the clock. She's too strong, too experienced. She knows that something like g5 is something you cannot take back, right? So I wouldn't do this. For example, it could be g4, knight e4, weakness on f5. You could regret it in some endgame, and that's why she plays queen e4.
Well, this is very smart straight. If White takes on e4, you're going to get c file under your control because the queen is off the board, and also you're going to get very nice d3 square for the knight in the future. If this knight somehow maneuvers and gets on d3, that's a nice outpost indeed.
Right, and now I wonder what Tanjanki is going to do against this move, because queen e4 was under my radar, but I was looking at it here, tell you honestly. I was looking at it... where was this?
Ooh, chat says that bishop b8 was the engine move. There really? You go, Keti.
Really? Wow.
I don't know.
Okay, I was looking at queen e4 here. I mean, I didn't mention this. I was looking at here. But I had a feeling this is too much. Because now the knight on d4 protects the c2 square, and there's bishop d6. Nice. Could be some problems. Maybe it's not losing by force, but the knight on d4, this is a kind of weakness. King g3, king f4, rook a1. Whatever. I had a feeling that White is pressing. But now compare this position. The white knight is not on d4. Rook c2 is an issue. And g4 feels...
I'm starting to like now black's activity. And you know what, Artur? If you play knight to f4 to keep your ideas going on, queen can take on d3 and you can take back with the rook because of this bishop on h2.
Say a lot of thank you for the bishop on h2, which took away the escape route. It can't go there.
Yeah.
No,
of course, you can take back with a knight. However, you allow rook c2 to happen.
Yeah, this is definitely good for black.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe white is not even in danger, right? But suddenly I look at this position and I wonder...
Oh, maybe bishop e5 there, and white is it's fine, like at least.
No, but she didn't enter this position to be fine, right?
Yeah, true.
She wants to play for the win. Maybe the idea is to play g4 still. Wait, what about g4 here? What happens here? I mean, obviously knight h4 is an idea. It is an idea. Knight h4 takes. Oh, this is such a hole on f3, right?
Very bad situation here. Knight f3, knight e2, just controlling.
You showed this to the kids and you said this is how you don't play at home, right? I mean, you don't trade this weakness and create a gaping hole on f3s. So don't do this. Yeah, but then what do you do? What do you do? I mean, tangent key now looks a bit.
You can play knight f4.
Frozen.
This is fine, Artur. You can play knight f4. So basically, don't want to take the pawn on d5, but it's a pretty looking move. And knight f4, queen d3, knight to d3.
Am I even obliged to take?
You're not. You're not. Oh.
You remember this idea?
Yes, because of the bishop.
Yeah, by the way, knight f4, g5. What do you do?
This is in the game?
No, this is not in the game.
Okay.
No, but I have a feeling that tangent key just missed queen e4. Correct me if I'm wrong, because the idea was very nice. Bishop h2, knight f4, go after the pawn. I guess she anticipated something else. If you want to play g4, maybe play g4 immediately, right? I don't know. Yeah, but listen, yeah, you're absolutely right. I also hear what you're saying in the chat. I know. There's the other game going on also. Alexander Goryachkin against Alexander Kostanik, but you have to understand, right? There's also some immediate action happening in this game, so I guess we really have to divide our attention.
Mainly because of the low time on the clock for Katerina.
Okay, let's jump back. Let's jump back to the Kostyuk against Goryachkin because there is some action as well. So we left at a5. F4, she did play f4. Takes the rook b1, and she didn't play f5. Okay. Takes. Remember, Keti, what I said? The black is automatically going to take on f4?
Yeah.
To
open up the rook on e8, that's a great idea. And potentially to have e5 square.
I think I would open it for black, to be honest. But there's nothing wrong what she's doing. This is also perfectly viable, and I think that Goryachkina is just evaluating that, let's say here, she's evaluating that f5, whatever the bishop, that this attack is never happening.
How about queen h5, knight g6?
Oh, you don't believe me, yeah? Actually, that's a good point. Look at that.
Queen h3 and rook f5.
Look at that. Okay, I stand corrected. So f5. Okay, let's do this. Let's be accurate. Yeah, let's be accurate. Now there's no knight g6. But yeah, and queen g4, knight g6 also doesn't work. Your pawn on d3 is under attack.
Wow. Yeah, and I think this f5 creates a little bit unpleasant situation, and black has to play a little more accurate. And with the pawn on f4, you don't really create any threat of taking on e5. So why not to play f5 right away?
Tell you honestly, it's not very obvious to me. It's not an obvious choice to me because a gut instinct for me was saying that black is going to take on f4. Maybe we just treat the position differently, right? And I like what she's doing. Maybe both of the continuations are perfectly fine. Okay, rook d8 was played, rook d1, rook a3, queen c2 was played. Maybe black keeps the option to take on f4 at some point later. Like now,
why not?
He's asking to be played. It's just asking to be played because look at white's pieces. They're somewhere stuck at the queen side.
Yeah.
This king is weak.
Also, knight h4, knight e3, they are not connecting. Pawn on f4 is hanging somehow. Maybe queen d6 even to attack the pawn.
Yeah, what about your g5 idea? You wanted it.
In this game?
Yeah, this game, sure. You did recommend me g5 some months ago in this game.
And you liked the g5 in the other game.
No, but because I have a feeling that the white king is exposed, right? And all of white's pieces are somewhere stuck at the queen side. And maybe this could be a chance, try to, complicate matters. For example, takes, and...
95, maybe?
95. Yeah, but this is not very clear. It's not very clear, yeah. D4, white also has counterplay. But the point is, I had a feeling that black should somehow try to open up the position. The idea is to play f5 or
Artur,
g5.
Can we do queen to d6 now? And after f5, to get this bishop, I think we should go on f7. I was thinking that my original plan was to go on c8 and then somewhere on a3 to attack the pawn on d3. But these knight g6 ideas are just very unpleasant in some way.
This is something you never want to miss, especially in time trouble.
Yeah. Unless you can play king to g8 only.
Wait, but there's a move already played. b5.
Ooh. Whoa.
That's a great move.
So with this idea, b4 can be happen, and black wants to undermine d4 square. If c3 is gone, then knight comes on d4, stays there forever.
Kostanyuk is in trouble. I think she's in trouble. It's feeling the entire pace. It feels that Kostanyuk is being outplayed. She's being punished for, once again, we have to go back for this move, b3. It was a very, very interesting maneuvering game. Move 20, let me show it to you here. Interesting idea, prepare bishop b2, but she underestimated or simply missed this immortal knight, jumping already 12, 30, 40 moves. And she lost the control of the d4 square. And now the idea for black is to play b4, get control of the d4 square. And this knight has been a hero, literal hero of this game, because it made like 15 moves. Out of 31, half of the moves were made by this knight here. And black is just taking over the game. I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah, Gerechkina's knight.
Okay.
But imagine, Artur, if the question is asked, like how the knight got on c6 square from b8 or from g8. Most of us, if we don't know this game, would answer from b8 for sure.
Here's how it got. I think we have some time. Draw some arrows.
D, h3, g5, f7, d6, b5, d4, and c6. I'm
so bad with arrows. There you go. Very obvious, yeah? Okay, it's Wonder Knight. So it's anyway,
art of the chess.
That is art. That is art, right? So there could be a quiz like how the knight got to c6, what you were saying, not knight c6, right? But something else. But now, not Gerechkina, but Kostanyuk faces a very, very tough choice. Because I think by intuition, she wants to go for some kingside attack. Because this is smart to do in time trouble. I think she has to try f4, g5, knight f3, etc. Rook g1, maybe drop the pawn on b3. Otherwise, how do you keep your position together?
Like, look at this position. Queen and both rooks are stuck with d3 and b3 pawns. They cannot really move at all. They can move rook to b2, rook to d2. That's the only... And queen is stuck there. Queen cannot even move. All you can do is move with the knights on the king side. You can't even move the pawns on the queen side. So half of the board, queen side, and the middle of the center is just paralyzed. And these ideas of what you just mentioned, f5, g4, g5, I think the only choice here for white. Because otherwise, like, how are you gonna make next moves?
All I'm thinking here, Keti, about this pawn structure is the bathtub, right? What was it? Do you know this? What is the name? There was this very term I learned some time ago, bathtub, the pawn structure.
Oh, I never heard of it.
No, I also had never heard of it. Somebody explained to me this was the bathtub, right? Anyway, jokes aside, I mean, the white's position is pretty annoying, and she's down on the clock slightly, 11 minutes, 31 moves can be made. Black is threatening b4. Gerechkina is definitely taking over the game. And for Kostanyuk, things are looking pretty
quite tense
reverse
on the
last time.
both games. So, guys, we invite you to write us in the chat. Who do you support? Who is your favorite in this match? Is Alexander Kostynik, Alexander Goryachkina, and in the other match, Tan Zhongyi against Katarina Lagno. So make sure that you send all these nice signals and the vibes to the players. And we can also know the whole picture. Who do you guys support and who do you think gonna win this game today? This is the first round, first game as the FIDE Candidates Tournament Pool B. We're gonna have a lot of games, a lot of games. But for the start, we're gonna have 4 games with these players. Artur, do you think that 4 games is a bit too much, a bit too low for this kind of like format of the tournament?
Well, it's definitely more than 2, right? Because in 2 games, a lot of things can happen. You lose 1 game, that's it. I mean, you have to win on demand, and that's why, for example, the World Cup often is a lottery, right? you lose 1 game, unfortunately, that's it. You can't do a thing anymore. But in 4 games, I think it's very more or less objective, right? So the better player most of the time is going to win. And I like it. I like it, to be honest. I also like that they're changing the format. FIDE is changing the format. And since the introduction of Grand Swiss, actually this is slightly a separate topic. I really like that there's a chance for every person to qualify for the match for the World Championship title. Now there's a clear path, right? For example, for me, in order to become a world champion, I would have to somehow qualify for the Grand Swiss. Whatever, let's say I could do this from getting 2650, then I win the Grand Swiss. I enter the Candidates Tournament. I win the Candidates Tournament. I meet the champion. I beat the champion. I'm the world champion, right? So some time before, it was much more difficult for the standard grandmaster, right, so to speak, to have some shot, at least theoretically, for the championship title. So I like it. And for women, it's exactly the same, right? Also, the Grand Swiss was organized for the first time last year.
Yeah, in Riga, right?
Yeah, it's a great format. I like it, and FIDE is doing wonderful things to improve, right? Because you do remember how the situation was some time ago. It was a bit chaotic. It was changing, but now there's the Grand Prix systems. I like it.
Yeah, a lot of more tournaments for the qualification. Yeah,
they're making it really exciting. Knockout system is becoming the new standard. This is also a knockout system, right? It's a mini match, but it's a knockout, right? So there are positive changes.
Yeah, kind is an excellent format, says one of our viewers in the YouTube chat. And I also agree, this is also for the first time when we have 2 pools, Pool A and Pool B. For me, it would be, if like as a viewer, I think it would be great to see those 2 events happening at the same time. So we're going to know the winner of the Pool A and the winner of the Pool B at the same day, at the same moment. However, that's a really tough job to do, to organize that, the prize fund, the working forces and the organizing and so on and so on. It's tough, but imagine if you know those 2 players at the same time. That could be really something maybe in the future we can have.
Right. All right, Keti, let's also jump back to the other game, because I think now in the time trouble, we are going to be jumping here and there between these games. We don't want to miss any action. Oh, wait, there's nothing happening after Queen E4.
Something happening, and Tan Zhongyi is catching up with the time. 11 minutes for her.
She clearly missed it. It's very obvious. She missed it.
Yeah, she has 23 minutes. I think she has spent more time. We can zoom, actually. We can see that. Can you see it?
Oh, this body language. Look at the body language of Tan Zhongyi. Oh, what did I just do? Yeah, I know this too well, right? Sometimes you work very hard, you're super concentrated for 4 or 5 hours, and then there's just this one moment when you slightly rush, and that's it, your opportunity is gone. Because your opponent is so good that he's not going to give another opportunity. And then you sit like this, yeah. Okay, well, I mean, what can I do? What can I do?
Sometimes I know that some coaches are telling to the kids not to rush, to sit on the hands and then to think and then to play. That's very cute technique. I've never heard of it before, but I know that some of the coaches are using this because in the children's tournament, the kids event, there's a lot of blunders and there's a lot of cries during the game. So that's a very nice technique, I think you can use. But yeah, at this point, I think they don't need that much of the technique to implement. But even grandmasters sometimes rush into the decisions.
Yeah, because they're human. Of course, I mean, they are the best players in the world, but they're still human. They make mistakes. Magnus Carlsen is the best player pretty much of all times, and he still makes mistakes, right? So It's absolutely normal. It's human to make mistakes. So after Queen E4, I think, again, the body language of Dungeon Key says it all. And if I'm not terribly mistaken, if she's not going to find a way to fight for any advantage, I think she's going to try to bail out. Mm-hmm. While it's not too late, right? Because Black is very active with this Rook C2 threat. And maybe it's just, okay, I mean, this is still a match situation. Draw is not a tragedy. Maybe let's just, let's make a draw. How do I make in the most...
more precise way to, the move, which is more precise here to go to the drawish path.
I'm not really sure if White really needs immediately to fight for the draw here, but now Black's threat of Rook C2 is looking quite something. And again, we discussed the background issues, right? Because White cannot easily play knight d4 at any given moment because there's this Rook C1 check. And this is actually because of White's bishop h2 here, bishop h2. This was apparently a mistake. And bishop b8, as somebody said in the chat, Keti, right? Bishop b8 was the best move. I said, come on, what is this? And yeah, there you go. Strongest move.
You don't trust.
Insane.
Bishop a7 was a very strong threat.
Kostanyuk, because here
but
you
Artur, go. To be honest, I like this move, bishop to b8. But if it's my own game, I think I would also choose bishop h2. It's more like solid move. Solid move. Because when you know there's a puzzle that you can solve, or it's just a commentary you can take back this move because it's not your piece, you can for sure be very brave and creative. But when it's your own game, bishop h2 is the most logical move there to play.
Kostanyuk is completely outplayed right now. I think she is in big trouble here because after this knight f3, queen f7, knight e2, now Goryachkina finally took on f4, which we discussed at some point because it feels that the white king at h1 is slightly vulnerable, and black goes after the king plays f5 and is willing to rip apart the position. So think about ideas like e5, g5, take it, knight e5.
Can we be very ugly and do some kind of sacrifices there? Like, let's say after e5 to take knight e5?
Where?
Instead of g5.
Instead of here?
Yeah. Knight e5, f takes e5, and f4. So if you don't... Yeah, if you play this move, I will give a bishop d5 check.
Okay.
c4, perhaps. Ugh. But it's too much, right?
Would you play it yourself?
So.
No? Probably not, no? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I guess, too much.
No, I wanted to play... Oh, hold on. Rook to a2.
What?
Not my piece, I told you.
Not my game, yeah, I know this.
Queen a2.
Not my game, yeah.
Bishop e4, king g1, queen g6, king f2, queen g2. There we go!
You managed to make it work. And the queen is hanging.
Oh,
wait, it's not over.
It's a checkmate on the back row.
Okay, I mean, this is too funny. It's not going to happen. I mean, forget it. It's not going to happen. We're just having some fun here. But stuff like this on some lines, why not? But it's very thematic, It's very thematic what Goryachkin is doing. I would probably play the same. I was looking at this f5 idea, e takes, g takes f5 at some point later. Mm-hmm. And now e takes on f5, Kostanyuk well understood that after most likely e5, g5, things are just looking too bleak. She is on the defensive, clearly. Now Kostanyuk is all thinking about how should I try to escape from the draw, with the draw from this game. So, what do? Bishop 5 and knight e4, I guess, right? Oh, wait, it drops a pawn.
Yeah, something is not okay here. Something c4, no.
Bishop f5
Maybe
is on
b4, just like b4 and knight d4. Oof, they are playing so fast.
They're playing very fast. Kostyanyuk is slightly lower on the clock, 6 minutes, move 36. There is no time trouble yet because remember, dear viewers, they are getting half an hour after move 40. So the time control is 90 minutes for the entire game. Then after move 40, you get extra 30 minutes. So that's why this is usually the most critical moment of the game. And there's a lot of action, usually in something like last 10, 15 minutes before the first time control finishes. You get a lot of moves, a lot of actions. This is usually where the game ends. So we are watching history here.
Right, queen 2, f5, attacking the both pawns. d3 and f4.
Knight e4?
But still the f4 pawn is hanging, right? You think to change it to c5 pawn is fine?
Meaning trade this pawn for this pawn?
Yeah.
White, of course, doesn't mind it. Yeah, I see, of course, dear viewers in the Twitch channel, I see that you're saying that f5 is a mistake. Yeah, that here g takes on f4, queen h5 was stronger, and f5 is a mistake. But it's very logical. It's very human. I mean, I tell you honestly, I would probably consider it myself. Maybe Goryachkina slightly rushed with the idea. Maybe, yeah, maybe. Maybe she should have played queen h5, queen e2. And maybe first include this move and then play f5 at some point later, right? But I mean, this entire sequence, e takes, g takes, f5, it just makes so much sense that it's understandably what she did. But yeah, engines, I guess, don't like it.
Yeah, and also another thing is like if Goryachkina knows that she has to candidate move f5 or queen h5, she might go with queen to h5. Very often we're talking about the candidate moves, right? That's why it is so important to define what is the candidate move. For that, you need to think what is the weakness, what is your opponent's the weakest points, and then that's how you're getting to the candidate moves. To be honest, queen h5 is the move which everyone would play if you see this kind of move, right? But it's not easy to see it. Just all the tension is on the queen side. Queen is perfectly placed on this diagonal, like in b3 pawn, and you just blow up the center. So f5 is obviously the first candidate move. But then if someone just tells you that there is another candidate move, queen h5, maybe you start to analyze it and think about it. And for sure you would like it, of course.
Right.
But why not?
Right. It's actually a bit unfortunate for Goryachkina because she was playing the entire game very, very carefully, very methodically, not rushing. And now she rushed, I guess, with this f5. If we can indeed believe what the viewers are saying, and now I look at this position, I indeed have a feeling that worst is behind for white, right? Because if you go back once again at this position, where was this? Here. E takes, g takes. I mean, look at visually at the board. You have a feeling that all white's pieces, they're disconnected at the queen side, and this king is wide open for an attack. And this is why I said, with the help of this weakness on d3, weakness on b3, open king, there should be something for black, and that's why Goryachkina opened the position. But now look at this final position, you can't help but feel the opportunity is missed.
Yeah, that's right. Our chat says that maybe Goryachkina was trying to keep pressure on the clock, and also the position is better, but I also am a bit surprised because Goryachkina is the one who is always using all the time on the clock and makes the most precise moves. But still, this is not the end. Like, still, white is struggling with this open king, and some of the weaknesses on f4 and also b3, d3 are there. Meanwhile, Artur, we do have the raid from Zoom Pili on our Twitch channel. So thank you so much for the raid, and we appreciate that. Welcome everyone who just joined us. This is Women's Candidate Tournament Pool B, and we just started all the action. Me and Artur are going to be here for all the tournaments, and we're going to cover all the days, all the classical games, and if there is any tie breaks, we're going to be also commentating on that. So guys, please make sure that you remember this tournament is happening almost every day and you don't miss any of the day of the
Right. For the next 2 weeks. For the next 2 weeks, this tournament will be played. There are going to be some rest days. But this is the main event right now. And Keti, I mean, I look at the body language of the players. What do you make of it? What do you think? What do you think that Goryachkina is feeling right now? Or what do you think is in Kosteniuk's mind?
Oh yeah, that's a very interesting question. I really like to study body language. Goryachkina very often puts this to hand here, and also very often stares at the opponent when she has better position. Now she's nowhere to look at the opponent in the eyes, so she's very much focused on the board. But at some point, I also found her distracted by watching at the clock. So probably she's not feeling fine with this time situation. She has 5 minutes at this point, and Kosteniuk has a bit more time on the clock. So I think Goryachkina is a bit distracted with these last
she knows.
decisions.
She knows she messed up. I think this is something that you don't need an engine for, right? When you had this feeling before, you had this very nice pressure, the pawn on b3, pawn on d3, you opened the position, suddenly white made the obvious moves, played knight e4, you realized, oh no, what did I do, right? So, okay, what should I do? And this is a very tricky moment because it's so easy to lose head in this position, right? Because you had this very large advantage, now your advantage is gone, and you're still conflicted with your feelings. Should I still try to press for the win? Should I try to play solid? And this unfortunate feeling that you messed it up is still in your mind, and don't tell me that chess is not a psychological game. It is. And even the best players in the world, they're
Of course it is. Before our chat reminds us that there is another game happening, I can tell to them that we have been it has been trade of the queens and the knights as well, and maybe we're going to have the first game ending in a draw, as it seems to be quite equal position, and they are also very close to get 40 minutes increment, and they are having 4 to 5 minutes average time on the clock. But the position is quite solid for both players. And here in this position, Goryachkina is spending way too much time. Look at this, 5 minutes and 4 minutes for Goryachkina. And she made a move. What is that move? Do you see?
97. 97 is on the board. So the idea, I guess, is to play 95, maybe 96. At the same time, you're trying to slightly secure your king. A good move. I like it. So Kosteniuk is still not out of the woods.
Yeah.
And the danger is still not over, but definitely this position should feel as sort of a relief for her. And now it's very important to make a lot of quality moves because we are nearing the magical 40 moves mark. Keti, 40th move, the notorious 40th move when you make a lot of mistakes. This is usually when it happens at the final move before you enter the second time control. I mean, it's so bad, it's so notorious, it happens all the time. It's in your head as well, right? Oh no, how should I not make a very big decision in the final move?
Yeah, that's right. And at this point, Alexandra Goryachkina brought her immortal knight, as you're calling it, the mosquito knight, as I'm calling, back into the game with all this action. I think this knight is going all the way to d5 and then e3 if white blunders that exchange, or to take the pawn on f4. Another road for the knight can be also knight g6, knight f4, knight h4 to bring on the king side, and also kind of waiting for white to make her next move.
This knight is indeed, like you said, immortal, right? I mean, he has made half of black's moves in this game. It's still not yet done. So, yeah, a bit amusing. I don't remember such an occasion, to be honest. In the modern chess,
that's happening. Yeah,
it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. Maybe there's some examples.
Our chat says a funny thing about the rook on a3. This rook looks like needs a new job.
Yeah, you could do it something like this.
Looks nice.
Yeah, rook a6.
You see,
rook a6.
the moment, Artur, moment you ask yourself some questions about the pieces which are not playing in big role in the game, then you answer right away to yourself, and this can be a very nice item. Maybe knight e7 was played because of rook a6 and rook h6 or rook g6 or somewhere else. I think that's why knight a7 has been played now.
Let's jump very quickly to Stan Janki against Katerina Lagno, because they made a couple of moves and they're about to reach the second time control, and then we can focus on what is happening in the game of Kostyanyuk against Goryachkina. And here, after, what was it, Queen e4, the trade happened. It did happen. So Queen e4, there was a trade, Knight g3. So yeah, this is what I felt. Tan Zhangyi decided to make a draw. So she acknowledged, okay, I messed it up. I missed Queen e4, takes, f6 against Bishop e5 ideas so that it doesn't happen. Bishop d6, trade it, Rook d2, g4, g5. All of these moves lead probably a draw. Yeah. The black king cannot make it to the queen side to b3. I don't think so, because there's rook standing at the d file. So I think we can leave this game for a while. And there's... Are they already finished, no?
They have already finished after queen to g2. Tan Zhangyi offered a draw and Katerina Lagno accepted it. And is this already move 40, so they did not really need any... Oh. They
finished,
have to make 40 moves or 41 moves?
Yeah, okay, it's pretty obvious it's going to be a draw. So let's go back to the Kostyanyuk against Goryachkina. This is where the action is still ongoing. And now the big question is how this game is going to finish. The game is heating up. This is move 38. Both players are down on 4 minutes. Not really a time trouble, but the big question is, can black still capitalize on this advantage? She had a very great position something like several moves ago. Now the opportunity maybe is gone, and Kostyanyuk is still trying to salvage the game.
That's right. 2 from today, games 1 game is down. We saw Goryachkina looked back, probably to check the other game which has ended. Or Artur, remember in Monaco we were talking about the noises in the room, and I remember that it was a very small room. It was a very quiet, so silent situation. No one was talking. People were barely breathing, and even one noise can make such a big deal in this kind of room. So maybe we also have this kind of situation.
I can literally see it. Imagine the players are concentrated. There's a total quietness. Opens a door, comes in Keti, and she starts to pour tea on a china glass, right? And everybody's like, what? What is that noise? And you're feeling so guilty, right? Like, oh, you're producing this terrible noise.
Yeah, we had that situation in Indonesia. We were playing some tournament. It was like a lot of people, but it was like so quiet. No one was talking, everybody in the game. And we had a photographer who was making the photos all the day long, and he was drinking coffee with all the noises. I don't know, like this. And as someone, I was very close to him. Unfortunately, he passed away last year, and I was like really close friend to him. And I asked like, why you are drinking like that? Is it hot or something? And he told me that this is the way how he feels all the taste, and that's why it is so delicious to drink coffee. Do you know that it's a lot of noise when you're making this? And at the chess tournament, we don't have that much of the noise. And he was like, it's okay, it's okay. Right. No worries. The most important is that the coffee tastes better. Oof,
all right,
Alexandra,
there's actually...
You gave such a look. Artur, I think there is some noise going on in the room.
Well, definitely that's not us. So queen c5, the trade had to be done. Look at this. I mean, there was this idea to play queen f4. I mean, initially I saw it and I was a bit excited. I saw this idea, check, here, knight f4. And this mate is inevitable, no matter what you do. But actually this would turn out to be a big blunder, because after queen a3, white plays rook f1 first. Here. Yeah, rook f1. And that's it. So you lose this chance, and then queen a3 is just securing at least what it looks like, the deal for white. So this, of course, didn't happen, and that also was the reason why here Goryachkina had to take it. Knight x on the 4, and now the question is, does black even have anything? It doesn't look like it.
Many pieces have been traded, and I think at this point, white should be more than happy. And also, it's 14th move, so they're gonna get extra minutes on the clock.
Now, I'm wondering about this, Keti. So the first time control is finished. They have reached the second time control, so of course you can spend quite a deal of time. But if you're playing with white, you're not playing for the win, right? I think your king is slightly cut off from the game. There's still some weaknesses. Do you play rook a1 and offer a draw? Wait, you can do this, right?
Why not?
Yeah, I was thinking that takes, knight x on d3, I hallucinated that there's a fork.
You can take on d3.
Of course, this I realized. You just take it. You just take it and there's the back rank issue, and that's it. So I have a feeling that also this game is going to finish very quickly. Because after rook a1, I don't think black can play rook a8 to keep this useless rook on a3, which desperately needs a new job. So maybe, I don't know, rook e1?
I'm so confused right now, Artur, because it's move 40 already, and Kostyuk still has 2 minutes on the clock.
Maybe the reason is that it's actually quite interesting because there's two types of clocks. Yeah. I'm not sure which one is used by FIDE, but there's two types of clocks, and one of them adds the time immediately after you make the 40th move, and this is what most people like. I'll tell you honestly, I like it most because I know for sure I've made 40 moves, I have added time. And then there's the other type of clocks, which adds time after your clock expires.
Yeah,
this is
I don't like that. I always want to make another move to be safe. I don't like that.
I think there's something like 99% people who like to do it, including me as well, right? You want to make sure that you've definitely reached the 41st move because, dear viewers, if you don't know, there's the so-called notation. How do the players keep track of the made moves? They write down the moves, obviously. And if you made a mistake somewhere, you jumped a move. You think you have made 40 moves, but you have made this mistake in your career before. You have skipped moves. Everybody has. Everybody has done it. And then you're kind of not sure, have you made 40 moves or not? So the right attitude is trust your handwriting.
Oof,
right?
I would never trust my handwriting because I always make mistakes.
And then you're silently, in a silent horror, you're watching the clock expire and you're begging that you have made 40 moves. Have you done it?
No.
I definitely have done it.
The thing is, like, I always skip one move. Whenever I start, and also my score sheet looks so funny. At the beginning, I start to write nicely, and you can understand it. In the end, no one can understand. I can't understand either. And at some point, I'm missing one move, which makes then black's move white, white's move black. So very often, in most of the games, I'm not having right notation on my score sheet. And Artur, I think maybe chat knows that too. Was that Ivanchuk who lost on time because he thought that it was already 40 moves, or was that anyone else? Okay, 13 seconds. We're gonna see now. Is this a rule or it's just the situation that the clock is not working properly? Let's see. Now it works properly. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. Yeah, so there we have a very nice zoom of the board, right? So that's a confirmation that the players have reached the second time control. They have added the extra 30 minutes as soon as Kostyuk's clock expired to 0. She got this extra 30 minutes, and this is really, really scary moment. I tell you honestly, right? I'm still, of course, very experienced player myself, but this feeling that you have missed something, it's still there, right? And of course, I know that the good practice is you trust your handwriting, because why this is so important? Because maybe this position is pretty simple, but there could be a situation when the 41st move is a very difficult move to make. Are you really going to rush just to make sure you have made this one extra move and you haven't really thought about it well? So it's really tricky. Here, maybe I would play rook a1 just in case, because I'm not the one playing for the win. But, sometimes you just...
I would make next move right away. I really cannot trust either myself or the clock. But the thing is that the players have been informed before the game at the technical meeting. They have all these details that the arbiter is telling them. So at this point, Kostyuk was not worried about that. As we can see, on her body language. She didn't either bother herself. Another thing is that you can also check your opponent's score sheet and take a look if it's a 40 move or not. But I strongly believe that there was one accident at least that when one of the players, and I think it's Ivanchuk, if not, apologies for that, wrote the move and he thought it was 40 move, and in fact it was 39, and he got flagged.
Oh, there's many situations like this. And also I think there's quite a very interesting incident. Maybe it was the last time when Magnus Carlsen flagged. He was still young and he was playing against Viktor Korchnoi. And this story I read on Facebook, so I can't really confirm if it's correct or not. But the story goes that Korchnoi supposedly wrote the same move twice. And Magnus looked at the score sheet, he thought it's move 40. This is what I read, right? But maybe it's not correct. But I mean, sometimes this happens, most of the times this happens not deliberately. You just make a mistake. Sometimes you glance at the opponent, you think that his handwriting is correct, but I think the right attitude is you should trust your handwriting and not the opponent.
Yeah. I remember one of those Carlsen situations when he was actually calculating checkmate, which was checkmating 9 moves, 7 to 9 moves against Anand, if I'm not mistaken. And that something happened. He thought he was getting the time on the clock. He thought that it was an increment after 40 moves. And instead of this, he got flagged and he lost the game. That was something that I also remember, because at the very same day, I had the very similar situation. Arthur, we're just players. We don't like to see the regulation before the tournament. So there was one of the few tournaments when I checked the regulation and it was clearly saying that it's going to be the increment after 40 moves. I played one of the open tournaments in Turkey. So I did not get any increment in a winning position, knight end game with extra pawn, and I got flagged. I asked the arbiter, what's wrong with this clock? And they said, we changed the regulation. It was last year, and we didn't update it on the inside.
Oh, my
And I was like, I'd read that, but how I would know that? And it's like, we announced that before the round. And it's like, I didn't heard it. Yes, because it was in Turkish. And I was like, okay,
you don't Turkish?
Give me any solution. Why I lost this game, really? So that's something that all the players are usually checking all the rules at the technical meeting or but before the tournament. And that's very important.
Keti, I have to tell you this very sad, funny story once. While we are waiting for the next move here, I think this is going to be a draw in a couple of moves. Maybe I'm terribly mistaken, but while we have time, we were playing in, which year was it? I don't remember. Maybe 2012, World Chess Olympiad. I think it was in Istanbul. Maybe it was another. I think it was in Istanbul 2012. So Team Latvia, we had a pretty good team. And suddenly our captain is approached by one of our players and he asks something. And apparently he asks, what is the increment? The captain thinks he's being asked, what is the increment? The captain says 30. Okay, he sits down. So he starts to think. And now the captain, I think I just finished the game or I was very close to finish. And we are normally not supposed to be there. But I asked the captain, what was the discussion about? He said, I think he asked me, how much is the increment? But he might have asked, what is the time control? And I said 30.
Yeah.
And he starts looking horror because our player's time starts to expire. And it's ticking and ticking. And he starts to become really nervous because he had a very good position. This is a very critical match. I think it was Latvia against Moldova. Yeah, I don't remember the Olympiad, but I remember the match. And he's thinking, and he is really nervous, the captain, because he wants to come and say, listen, it's 40 moves. It's 40 moves, right? It's not 30, it's 40 moves. And he flags. And now the most bizarre thing happens. He gets added extra time, extra 30 minutes.
Why?
The opponent looks at the clock. Because it's setting automatic. The opponent looks at the clock. He looks at the opponent at the clock. And I'm sitting quietly and I'm praying. Sit quiet. Sit quiet. Don't do a thing. Don't do nothing. Don't move.
Wow.
He stands up and calls the arbiter. Yeah, we lost it. I think The match, either we lost it or it finished 2-2.
But wait, whose fault was that actually?
Our players, because it was pretty much already, I don't remember which round, maybe round 4 or 5, but he didn't really clearly remember the time control.
Oh, that's actually the problem in the first round, but then after that, what's the time control?
Yeah, that's once again proves it's very, very important, of course, to know all the rules. Of course, he was feeling very bad and nobody taught him anything about it, right? Because we are a team, we have to have a very good team spirit, but everybody could feel the pain.
Yeah.
Right. So first thing, when you enter a competition, of course, you have to know the rules, right? You have to know how much time do you get? You have to know when you can agree to a draw. And for example, I'm an active player myself. I play any, for example, league match. I always ask the opponent, what's the time control? Oh, there you go. We have a draw agreed.
We have a draw offer from Alexandra Kostyniuk when she played rook to a1. That's the move you were suggesting, and you were saying, Artur, that that's at least a draw you can get from this move. And after some thought, Gertkina made a decision. So that makes us to have 2 draws at the very beginning of the tournament.
Big escape, Keti, by Alexandra Kostyniuk, because she was very, very close to being in huge trouble, and Goryachkina played a very fine positional chess. The knight on f4 is the true hero of this game, because I don't know how many moves it made. It probably was something like 20 moves. It made quite a remarkable journey over the board and still survived. So that's a story to tell to the grandchildren. Anyway, first 2 games of the round 1 are finished in a draw. And dear viewers, again, to remind you, this is a mini-match system, a knockout tournament of the Pool B Women Candidates Tournament. And there's going to be another game, and there's going to be more games followed. So we are going to be back already tomorrow.
Already tomorrow, and the time of the start is 3 p.m. local time, is Pakistan time. But it really depends which part of the world you are. For me, it is 11 a.m. in the morning. For you, Artur, it is 10 a.m., right?
At 12 p.m. Oh my goodness, I'm so bad. 12, yeah. It changes to p.m., yeah? I think so.
Yeah, 12. For me, it's 11.
I'm always confused.
It's quite early for chess, because usually brain needs some more time to wake up and get in a shape. But I think we had quite decent game round. Very interesting, very fighting spirit here. There will be no boring games, no boring draws, but we are going to have a lot of interesting games coming up. So guys, tomorrow will be the second game of the round 1. The day 3 will be day off for us and for the players as well. And then we'll be back with 3 and 4 games. So I think it's now time to thank to our chat on YouTube and on Twitch, who were so helpful and was a very good company. I should admit that they were very active. They were suggesting us the moves, and we're here not having the engine bar and evaluation. So we also had that part in our chat, and it was really, really nice start of the tournament, right, Artur?
Yeah, it was definitely a great start, not boring chess, despite the fact that it was draw agreed, a move 40 in one game, move 41 in the second game. Both players had, in both games, 2 players had chances. Goryachkina definitely had very good winning chances in the first game with black. Dan Zhanki, it felt she was better, but she missed this queen e4, then the opportunity was gone. She decided to bail out, make a draw. According to the match strategy, still good.
It is, so it is. Guys, for us to say goodbye, make sure that you follow our Twitch channel, because we are streaming on our private channels too. For Artur, it is GM Neiksans, and for me, it is Keti Tsatsalashvili, my last name. For your also last name, we have 2 complicated last names that the people have to type in the search part of the browser, but once you do it, you can follow that, and you don't need to do it any more times, and just follow. So guys, big thanks to you on YouTube, also on Twitch, and big thanks to our broadcast team who put everything together and gave us these beautiful cameras from the playing venue, so we can actually observe the playing venue and also players, and to have close up on the clock and the board. So it is goodbye from us, and see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
Goodbye.